This guy just enjoys a carefree noble life, eating delicious food every day and taking baths with hot maids. And he does it without even knowing where he is. Until one moment when a maid casually mentions his family name, Palacio. He instantly realizes he royally screwed up, because it turns out he ended up in the world of a game he used to play called Psychedelia. This whole world is destined to be destroyed by the 5 great sins, and he ended up in the body of the 3rd son of one of the worst noble families possible. His elder brothers are scumbags the world has never seen, and this whole family is destined to be destroyed first. Lying on the bed, he begs to return to his original life, as he sees nothing good in living comfortably only to die in 10 years. He weeps, thinking his current situation is worse than having 6 months of unpaid wages. Stuck in a fantasy world as a character with no special perks, our boy feels useless until an idea finally strikes him. Since he knows what is going to happen in the future, he realizes he might be able to change it. In order to eliminate the main causes behind the destruction, Aelon decides to reform the 5 great sins for the sake of his peaceful noble life. At present, these sins are just children. 2 months later, our protagonist had successfully rescued some orphans from a human testing center. He accomplished this with the help of Evan, a knight he hired recently. Evan reports that he has left the management of the orphanage in the hands of a girl named Utia. Our hero nods in agreement, realizing he made the right choice in picking Evan for the job, as the knight is quite skilled at handling such tasks. However, Alon struggles to show facial expressions, which leaves Evan puzzled and wondering if what he just heard was a compliment. Our boy notes to himself that he is simply unable to move his face muscles. He reflects that Evan is a rare gem in the world of psychedelia, because he remained honest and loyal despite the betrayals around him, which is why our protagonist hired him as soon as he found him. Returning to the report, Evan mentions that the only reason he was sent was to save Utia. As Aelon confirms this, Evan remarks that the girl is very different. With his experience as a mercenary, the knight can tell Utia is no ordinary child. She seems quite strong, and he cannot understand why she simply accepted being locked up. He is curious why our boy didn't bring her back to the estate. Alon agrees with the sentiment, but internally he thinks it might look like he is neglecting her instead of utilizing her potential. In reality, it is part of his plan to keep her in the orphanage. Utia Bloodia is a member of a bloodline that uses power through a contract with an indescribable otherworldly being. She is destined to become the sin of wrath among the 5 great sins, eventually causing hundreds of thousands of deaths as a monster. However, Alan believes that if she grows up peacefully, she will not turn out that way. He makes an excuse for leaving her there, simply stating that it is not the right time to bring her in. This leaves Evan speechless. Our hero further adds that the matter must not be leaked, then hands over a handwritten letter for Evan to deliver to Utia. Alan wrote this to calm her down, knowing she has gone through the trauma of human experimentation. Later, after Evan leaves the estate, our protagonist reflects on the letter. While it appeared to be for comfort, he actually wrote an incantation he heard in the game dozens of times. According to the Archbishop, this can be used to befriend the Blood Clan. Our boy used this incantation in the game to try to calm down wrath, but it failed because it was too late for her, ultimately costing him his life. Now our hero thinks that it might not be too late. He feels relaxed after removing one of the 5 destruction flags, although he finds it funny that a single sentence can make one friends with a monster. He believes the thoughts of those in the realm of fanaticism are unpredictable. In the meantime, Utia has read the letter, and the magic power she emits is overwhelming. She figures out that the person who wrote to her is Aelon, but it pisses her off that he didn't call her to his side. She emits a deadly aura and, surprisingly, uses visualization magic power, a feat usually reserved for those at the master level. Suddenly, she recalls our boy saying it wasn't the right time to meet yet, and that excuse strangely seems to work. Utia calms down while interpreting the quote, considering it a promise that only her master, meaning Aelon, would understand. Utia is the sin of wrath and the daughter of the Blood Clan, the Utia Bloody Queen. Meanwhile, back with Aelon, he thinks he has managed to stretch his luxurious lifespan a bit further. He even imagines the bright moon in the sky is cheering for him. Now, our protagonist is fully encouraged to begin work on his next target. A cascade of books falls on Alon while he is busy searching for a clue regarding the location of the 3rd boss. Right then, Evan appears and reports that he has dispatched the 2nd child as ordered. Our protagonist's main concern is whether the knight treated the child gently. Evan nods, but before he can complete his report, the study door is destroyed. The intruder is none other than the 2nd brother, Tonio Palladio. He mocks our boy for reading books despite being illiterate, but Alon remains quiet about Tonio's insults. Our hero is so annoyed by this behavior that he wonders how the original Aelon managed to live like this. While he would like to fight back, he chooses to kneel and take his leave instead. Tonio is immensely pleased by this submissive behavior, but in that very moment, he is nearly struck by a dagger. The one who threw it is Aelon's first brother, Leo Palladio. Now, both of the brothers glare at each other with killing intent, mocking one another's stench. In the game, the Palladio family members were merely minor characters who disappeared quickly, yet they possessed overwhelming power. Therefore, Alon decides not to get involved with his brothers as they fight over the position of family head. One is an underworld boss known as the Prostitution King, and the other is a drug lord running a massive cartel. As the two brothers begin fighting in the study, Alon and Evan flee the room. Our boy is determined to live a happy life as a supposedly incompetent illegitimate son. They eventually return to Alon's room, where Evan reports that the second child does not seem ordinary either. Seeing how dumb our protagonist acts, Evan is confused and wonders how someone like Alon could discover secret human markets and illegal slave trades to rescue children. To the night, our boy looks like someone who cannot even take care of himself. He considers Alon odd for sending this second child to the orphanage as well. Our hero notes to himself that these children are not just beyond ordinary, they are at a world destruction level. The Allied Kingdom consists of several nations, and the second child was found in the illegal slave market of the Kalian Kingdom. This child is the second boss of Psychedelia, Deus Macalian. After being sold as a slave and abused across various locations, he eventually became the Sin of Sloth and eliminated kingdoms in the most terrifying ways. This was the part of the game where most players were terrified by his cruelty. In reality, the Sin of Sloth is a diligent person who repays exactly what has been done to him. Therefore, our boy specifically told Evan to treat him kindly. Alon gives the same reason he gave before, that the time simply hasn't come yet, though his hand trembles as he sips his tea. Evan expected this answer, but wonders if the letter sent to Yudia was regarding this second child. Our protagonist confirms this, noting that he also added some everyday venting to build familiarity with her. Additionally, he asked her to take care of the child he was sending. At the orphanage, Deus does not play with the other kids much. Later that night, Yutia approaches him, recognizing how broken he looks. Surprisingly, she talks about that thing that left scars on Deus's body, the black goat. She unexpectedly congratulates him for being chosen by the Great Moon. As a chosen one, she advises him to feel his granted power and draw out what belongs to him. She insists that if he shows loyalty and follows only that person, he will surely get his revenge. Under the influence of her words, Deus emits a vast quantity of energy. Holding Alon's letter under the moonlight, Yutia decides to send a reply. The next day, our boy is again busy in the study searching for the third boss. Suddenly, Evan bursts in with terrible news. Alon's second brother has just died. It is quite unexpected for Tonio to die this early. Later, our protagonist attends the funeral, where shockingly, his own father is present with women on both sides. It is a total mess, and Alon finds it insane that drugs and women are present at a funeral. More importantly, he finds it weird that Tonio supposedly died from an accidental fall. He wonders if the story settings have changed, because in the game, the first brother killed the second after years of struggling for the inheritance. Now Leo is simply amused by the unexpected bonus. While Alon suspects the work of Leo or his supporters, he puts it aside to focus on the problem of the 5 great sins. Eventually 1 year passes. The succession issue has been resolved. Leo has taken over the drug business, and the family estate has become peaceful. Meanwhile, Alon has grown more familiar with Yutia through their letters. He believes that building this familiarity gradually will eventually help him. Yutia writes about her friends. Yuna is good at hide-and-seek, Radan likes war games, and Deus loves puppet theater. Reading this, Alon remarks on how good those kids are. He also notices from the letters that the sponsorship list has increased again. He finds it strange that such a small orphanage is attracting so many sponsors, but Evan doesn't pay it much mind. Right then, the knight remembers something the young master was searching for. With the help of the Information Guild, he has found a clue. Our boy feels a sense of satisfaction, thinking it must be an ancient text about the third boss. He is excited to finally find that child as well, finding the evening quite peaceful. However, later that night, people are being killed. At a drug distribution site called Margot, 2 men discuss how generous the Palladio Elder is with compensation. One man remarks that their organization has grown to hundreds of people and will only get larger. Suddenly, both men find that their people are killing themselves, moving as if they are puppets. The long-haired man also begins moving against his will, and within an instant, all the men have taken their own lives. A cloaked figure enters the scene. It is Deus, who has been accompanied by Yutia. She absolutely enjoys his puppet theater, and she notes that the sponsorship list, the list of those they have eliminated, has grown as well. Deus curiously asks if what they are doing is meaningful, but Yutia only asks if he is feeling sympathy. He shakes his head, knowing these people were grinding humans to develop drugs, yet he isn't sure how this helps his revenge. Yutia explains that this place will become the foundation for that person to return, and it cannot be shabby when they arrive. She claims this is the will of that person. With that, the 2 of them leave the scene, engraving the symbol of a blue moon on the ground, the symbol of their hero's sword. 2 years have passed since Alon and Yutia began their frequent exchange of letters. Currently, Evan is struggling to find our young master within the estate, but after searching for some time, he finally locates him in the back garden. Alon appears to be practicing something in the quiet space. Evan reports that he has successfully sent the 5th child to the orphanage, news that brings our hero a sense of total bliss. Over the last year, our protagonist has successfully located the remaining 3 sins. To celebrate, Alon treats his personal night to some snacks. He reflects on how much he struggled to find the 3rd child, who was destined to become the sin of greed. Since Evan has worked so hard, our boy treats him to macarons and instructs him to rest, acknowledging that the knight has traveled everywhere for his sake. Now that the mission to fill the orphanage is over, Evan feels a deep sense of relief. Lying on the grass, the knight wonders aloud if our hero is finally happy. Alon nods in confirmation, but Evan points out that his master's face doesn't show it at all. Even with a completely plain expression, our boy insists that he is indeed smiling, though Evan eventually gives up on the argument. Later, while laying on the grass, our protagonist notes that things are going much more smoothly than he expected. The bosses of Psychedelia only became the 5 great sins due to their tragic histories, and Alon believes that by rescuing them early, the possibility of them reaching that dark state has become low. Initially, he had worried he would find the children in poor condition, but a new letter from the orphanage suggests otherwise. Evan delivers the report, which states the orphanage is running smoothly, and the children have become much more cheerful. Because of this, our boy decides not to hire a professional childcare teacher. He never expected Utia to manage the facility so well, and wonders if she had some past attachment to such a place. He concludes that she is a good kid. In her letter, she reassures Alon that everyone is healthy and growing well, specifically telling him not to worry about Deus anymore. It feels good for our boy to know the children are thriving, especially since their growth environment is vital to preventing the rise of the sins. However, Evan is frustrated that our protagonist hasn't actually met the children yet. Alon tries to dodge the subject because he personally has no desire to see them. While getting close to them might be beneficial, the memory of how tragic and horrific their paths were in the game makes him feel like throwing up. Even though he rescued them before their awakening, our hero remains terrified of them. Turning away, he gives a rough estimate that he might meet them in 5 years. Now that the 5 sins are gathered, Alon begins to focus on his own self-preservation. In this fantasy world, magic is essential, and luckily his current body possesses the talent for it. Suddenly, Evan mentions an organization called Blue Moon. Alon is entirely unaware of the name, but Evan explains it is a famous group that destroys criminal organizations. Our boy doesn't pay much attention, assuming that since no such group existed in the game, it will likely disappear soon. Evan adds that they also eliminate corrupt nobles, expecting his master to have heard of them, but Alon simply ignores the comment and tells the knight to sleep in the room next to him. Later that night at the orphanage, Utia receives reports on the activities of Blue Moon. One child, Seolong, reports that she has eliminated everyone at her target location. She is the sin of pride, and confidently reveals that her identity remained a secret because her clothes were specially made by another child named Rhine. Seolong adds that she offered to spare her targets if they could guess her eye color, but none of them succeeded. Rhine, who is actually the sin of greed, coldly reports that she has burned the corpses as well. Another child, Radan, reports that the south is clean too. As the sin of mysophobia, he turned the men from the Avalon organization and an illegal experimentation facility into something unrecognizable. Utia is satisfied with their work, reminding them that they exist for the Great Moon. This secret organization, Blue Moon, worships the Great Moon, but Deus points out a looming problem. It pisses Utia off to think there could be any issue when everything is supposedly under that person's will. Deus explains that the head of Avalon is the son of the Count family where Alon lives. Furthermore, he has discovered that the eldest son of the family is targeting that person. Hearing this, Utia emits an overwhelming amount of energy. The letter she holds instructs her to get rid of the threat, and she crimps the paper in anger, agreeing with Deus's assessment. 2 years later, Alon's father dies. Although the official cause is listed as a heart attack, our protagonist knows the man abused drugs until his last breath. Nearby, people discuss a recent raid by Blue Moon, and our young master notes how concerned everyone has become regarding the group. The funeral ends in silence, with no one truly mourning the Count. Back in his room, Evan asks about their next step, since the eldest son, Leo, is set to become the family head next year. However, the knight is puzzled to see our boy packing his bags. Surprisingly, Alon wants them both to leave immediately. Evan wonders if they are fleeing the territory, but Alon explains they are heading south to Roadmill, a small village. As they depart, Leo observes them from the estate. After enjoying 3 full days in the village, they return to the estate, but only because our boy has come for the funeral of his first brother. He hadn't actually planned on returning, and he is deeply confused to see Leo die so soon. The cause of death was a sword through the heart, and there is no clue as to the identity of the murderer. When Alon tries to ask a servant for details, the man reacts with sharp fear and apologizes just for making eye contact. This behavior leaves our young master puzzled. Soon, Evan leans in and whispers, asking Alon if he is the secret mastermind who eliminated the Avalon organization overnight. Our hero is left in total shock. On the day Alon left for Roadmill in the carriage, Evan wonders why he has chosen a village instead of a city. Before answering, our boy reflects that this village is the final destination of his plan. He has saved the 5 great sins from their struggling lives and prevented the future in which the whole world is destroyed. Roadmill, on the other hand, has no connection to the original story, plus it has a Palladio villa. Our protagonist plans to live a luxurious life like a noble. However, he reveals to Evan that there is a reason for everything. Evan is not satisfied by his answer as he knows Alon always brushes off things that bother him. But our hero insists on leaving things like that. Leo starts to think about whether to kill him or not. Even though he finds Alon useless, he still considered killing him with poison after their father's death. But now that he has left the estate, Leo feels there is no reason to kill him anymore. Still, Leo finds them super annoying, maybe because of things like Avalon not doing well recently. Yet, he orders his man to follow their carriage. His man, Alman, asks if he wants to eliminate him. Leo gets stunned, as he never expected his right-hand man to question him. As he reminds him to do as he is told, Alman pierces his sword right into his chest. Leo gets a huge shock being betrayed by his loyal man. But Alman has decided to get rid of him, as he has enjoyed playing along with him. Shockingly, Alman is actually Radan, a member of the Blue Moon organization. Weirdly, he reveals that they only believe in the Red Moon. The Blue Moon is his sword, hence they move when he wields it. They can't let anyone harm the Great Moon. With that, he lands a blow on Leo. Radan further adds they can move freely at their will. That is the reason why he waited for Leo to say those words. It took Leo 2 years to say those words. When Leo threatens him with his men, Radan simply reveals they will wipe out Avalon for good. He leaves the estate, thinking how Leo has acted even when their Great Moon has given him a chance. On the other hand, Alon is happy to spend his peaceful days in Roadmill. Waking up, eating whenever he wants, he is now enjoying the life of a true noble. But all of his peaceful days come to an end when they receive a telegram message. Our boy freezes when he comes to know about Leo's death. That's how he turns back to the estate after 3 days. All the servants react weirdly around him. Surprisingly, the reason is that they consider him the mastermind who has destroyed Avalon. Now Alon has fallen into some unpredictable, insane situations. Tears come out of his eyes as he wants to know how he became the mastermind. Evan points out that our protagonist is the only one who can gain the most from this. After the murder of Leo, Alon has now become the perfect heir with a perfect alibi. Now that Avalon is gone as well, there is no one left to give him a hard time. Due to these reasons, he has become the mastermind with a swordmaster level assassin working under him. Our hero is confused as ever as to how in the world someone could take down such a big underworld organization instantly. Right then, he remembers about the organization who hunts down other organizations. He is actually talking about the Blue Moon. However, Evan reveals that the Information Guild thinks it's not the Blue Moon, because they have noticed that the Blue Moon doesn't leave bodies and always leaves a mark. But the thing is, Avalon's members were killed by swords. Our young master starts to shiver, as now he knows why he has become the mastermind with a swordmaster. Our boy reflects that the Blue Moon didn't appear in the game, so such a big group can't be the culprits. But the question still remains as to who it must be. Back in the orphanage, Reen reports to Yutia that there were no traces left behind. Solong reports the same thing. Just then, Deus and Radan come in and inform them that the remaining Avalon forces were 486 men. Just according to their master, they have cut everyone in half. Yutia is quite pleased by their progress. So in just 5 days, Avalon, the massive organization in the Asteria Kingdom, was fully wiped out. Radan reports that the cleanup isn't finished yet. He has found that many more nobles are connected to Avalon, including the Altia Duchy. With that, every son gets ready to take care of the rest quietly. Yutia asks about the matter of the Information Guild. Ryan reports that they are treating this matter as unrelated to Blue Moon. Deus adds that every other guild has the same opinion and is considering this the fault of the Swordmaster. Then Yutia orders to maintain the surveillance. Plus, she wishes not to bother that person with this matter. But Deus points out that this time, that person's blood relative tried to harm him. Cutting his speech, Yutia makes it clear that this wasn't an order. As the sword of that person, they can't think on their own. According to her, the Blue Moon can only move on command, but she reminds them strictly that this person knows about everything. Therefore, she doesn't want them to disappoint that person. On the other hand, Deus doesn't get why a person like Yutia is feeling nervous over merely being found out. Everyone acknowledges her. Everything they are doing is for the Great Moon, that person. In the estate, Alon was pretty busy after the funeral. All he wanted was to live a relaxing life using his money. Due to the death of Leo, he has earned a lot of resentment, although Leo's death was supposed to be 6 years later. After the death of his brothers, all the family work has been piled up on him as the heir. Soon, a group of employees comes into his office holding books and scripts. Our protagonist gets frustrated as he wonders why they are working so hard. He reflects that they were all lazy and took shortcuts when the Count was here. After the vassals put their materials on his desks, they start to fear as they observe his cold expression. They wonder if he is angry. Therefore, in order to not lose their lives, they decide to work even harder. Alan understands that they are fearing him because of the rumor. He wishes for them to take care of their own things themselves. Later, our hero is busy in his combat training, but Evan is super confused as he wonders how he has reached the second year in just 2 years of self-study. He has typical headaches about 4 years of training to reach the second year, for magic cannot be used at all unless one is born with the gift. Our boy brushes it off as he makes a simple comment about being somewhat talented, although deep down, he knows that he's been practicing so hard for self-defense because he was super anxious. The technique he is learning now needs precise mana control. He doesn't want it to be half-baked. Furthermore, he never imagined using magic in a fantasy world. Initially, he was excited. He thought there would be no danger once his plan was complete. But as survival became a real concern to him, he came to realize that his mana hole is quite small. As a result, nothing seems to be working out for him. The mana hole one is born with is like an athlete's body type, fixed from birth. On the contrary, our young master's mana hole is super small. Now sitting beside his personal knight, he thinks about a way when everything else fails. Meanwhile, Evan informs him about a dance invitation for him. Our boy gets a bit confused about the sudden invitation to a dance party. Later, both of them, all dressed up, arrive at the dance party. Alan is already feeling tired. This is actually a regular ball for networking among nobles in the southern region of the Asteria Kingdom. As our protagonist is becoming a count soon, he is all determined to build some connections. He believes that networking with nobles is important for his peaceful future. But to his surprise, every noble begins to run away from him as soon as he approaches them. Evan barely controls his laugh, but still wants him not to get upset. But Alan already expected this much. Then he signals Evan to wait for him until he comes back. As he walks away, he reflects that he already expected to be ignored for lacking dignity. Then he notes that unlike the time of his illustrious great-grandfather, the current Palatio is the black sheep of the East. However, our hero didn't come to the party without any plan. He has planned to use his social skills he has secretly practiced to turn the situation in his favor. He grabs a glass of wine and points out how its taste is unique. A lady nearby looks at him. Our boy praises the wine even more. Even though he believes he is smiling gently, in reality, he is making a creepy smile. The nearby lady runs away to her father in order to prepare the wine right away. But Alan didn't want her to do that. Meanwhile, all the people around him talk about how he threatened her to forcibly take a limited edition specialty wine. Evan again struggles to stop his laugh. Later, Evan counts how much stuff he has received. It includes 1 fine horse from Paldean, Fenian citrus tea, Vilanda crafted metal, and Malentino specialty wine. But Alan only feels dejected. He has found out that the Palladio family is more famous than he thought. Plus, since everyone believes he has killed his own brothers, they avoid him as much as they can. Getting frustrated from all of these thoughts, he starts to take some fresh air. Unexpectedly, a red-haired lady seems to be interested in our boy. Our protagonist is now standing on the balcony, as he is in his deep thoughts. Suddenly, someone speaks from behind as they wish to speak with him for a moment. He wonders who this person is. Suddenly, a girl named Loria, daughter of the Altia ducal house, comes forward. Looks like our boy knows about this family. He recalls that the Altia family is one of the 3 great villains of psychedelia, the black sheep of the north. Plus, he knows that anyone who speaks to him would not be ordinary. But the thing is, he doesn't remember Loria at all, because he never saw her in the game. Without wasting another second, Loria demands him to support her as she claims she will be assassinated soon. Loria explains that she has received her father's affection, and until now, was protected as the daughter of his mistress. But now, as her father, the Duke of Altia, has fallen ill, her sisters have planned to kill her. Now our protagonist gets the whole picture. The thing is, she was already dead when the game began. Even though she begs him to support her, he refuses straightforwardly. She then even offers him half of House Altia if he helps her. Still, Aelin doesn't seem interested in helping her. Deep down, he admits she is in a painful situation, but he also doesn't want to involve himself in the trouble of others because it is already hard keeping himself alive. Furthermore, he doesn't have those powers the rumors say he has, so he cannot help her. But our hero gives up as he sees her hopeless face. Therefore, to cheer her up, he mentions she will get something good in the future. He comes back to the ballroom. Unexpectedly, Dias and Rhine are observing everything from the shadows. They learn that Altia has approached the Great Moon. Dios thinks of informing the Red Moon that something is about to happen to that person. However, Rhine believes it isn't necessary. According to the information they have collected, Loria is the only one from her family who is not connected with Avalon, meaning she is not the target of Radon. Deus considers this good news, as all the other Altias will be taken care of sooner or later. Rhine then reminds him that their job is to focus on cutting off the information flow, because they don't want that person to know about the Avalon incident. Back in the party, Aelon feels like he has some kind of barrier around him as people are not engaging with him. Right then, a red-haired lady greets him. Our boy thinks that this is the opportunity for him to finally get friendly with nobles. Therefore, he greets her back. But seeing how shady she is makes him frustrated. Then he realizes he has seen her in the game. Seeing how she is acting makes him believe that anyone who talks to him first can't possibly be a normal noble. Still, he greets her, Lady Zenonia, with respect. She gets a bit surprised, as she didn't expect him to know about her. Our protagonist nods because she is very famous. The three great villainous houses of the Kingdom of Asteria include House Altia in the north, House Palatio in the east, and the degenerates of Zenonia in the west. Turns out this lady, Kalia, is the eldest daughter of Count Zenonia. House Zenonia is a more refined corporate-style syndicate, keeping in note that he needs some noble connections to survive, but since it's already falling apart, our hero praises her beauty gracefully. After thanking him, she wishes to talk with him more. Even though our boy wishes to talk, there are too many eyes watching them right now. Also deep down he just wants to leave. On the other hand, observing how cold he is, Kalia notes he is just like the rumors say. Then she says her goodbye, as she wishes for them to meet again. But our protagonist is confused seeing her leave so suddenly. Meanwhile, Ryan reports that the information about Avalon is being perfectly concealed. However, Deus thinks that there is now a new concern. He points towards a man who is keeping an eye on our hero from the outside. Ryan decides just to observe as they don't have any direct orders, but they will eliminate him if needed. On some other day, Evan is confused to see the canyon, which is emitting a dark aura, along with Alon. Evan is puzzled to see how dark it looks from the inside even in broad daylight. On the other hand, our boy feels accomplished on finally finding it. As they head inside, Evan hopes for this not to be a fake one as well. But our young master reassures him, saying it's the real deal this time. Our protagonist internally thinks that it was easy to find in the game. Actually, the reason he came all the way here is because of the labyrinth in the south. The Labyrinth of Whispers requires one to solve the riddles in 8 chambers to earn a valuable artifact as a reward. Even now, our boy remembers the whole walkthrough. They reach the front of a huge door, which is basically the labyrinth entrance. Even though our hero visited this place in the game a number of times, now he is feeling much different. Evan remarks that the display looks like someone has built this by hand. However, he is more curious to know how our boy knew about this. Unexpectedly, Alon reveals that he used to come here often. Evan grows confused. Then our protagonist smiles slyly as he mentions he was just joking. Inside, they see a number of dragon-like creatures flying, which are being smashed by 2 giant hands. The thing is, they will be smashed as well if they don't get a riddle right. But Alon is acting pretty calmly, which makes Evan stunned. Even though they have been together for 4 years, Evan still hasn't figured him out. Furthermore, all of the missions they have done till now are not related to each other at all. He doesn't know how in the world his master knows everything about this place, even when he has never left his home. In the meantime, our boy has gotten the riddle right, but the door won't open until one thing is done. As the door starts to open, Evan thinks that even after everything, following his young master has always led to something good in the end. He is so curious to know what our hero is now planning. On the other hand, Alon is feeling dreadful after trying to look at the massive door, as his neck has nearly sprained. As the door opens, both of them are now standing in front of a treasure. But our protagonist only orders to take the black ring and then head back home. Evan believes it will be totally useless, but our young master states that bringing anything else will bring them nothing but trouble. Wearing the black ring, Alon has now obtained the constraint. As soon as they turn back to leave, they find out that the piles of stones in the canyon were actually golems. Even in this situation, Evan only thinks about finding a way to at least make Alon get out of here. But surprisingly, our boy steps forward to eliminate those golems. Evan still reminds him that their first priority should be to escape. He tries to stop our protagonist by yelling that second-tier magic won't be enough here. But our hero has a plan. He uses Constraint Commence with the help of his new black ring. Some kind of powerful waves emerge from the ring against the golems. Someone recites a spell to use the black ring. Alon recalls that this part in the game had a selection window, so he knows that voice is actually the Labyrinth Clear Reward, Constraint. This is an absorption-type artifact that imposes restrictions on the user in exchange for power. Our boy shivers as he listens to the voice of the labyrinth. Firstly, it says that in all spellcasting, the hand seals of Babylonia shall be absolutely required. The labyrinth then asks what he wants to gain. Alon replies that he needs the power to twist the laws of the world a little more. The labyrinth then grants his wish. Then, for the second wish, it again recites a spell. In all spellcasting, only the sacred words of Babylonia may be used. The labyrinth then wishes to know what he wants by this. Our young master wishes for the same as before. But surprisingly, this time the labyrinth remains quiet. Our protagonist wonders if he has done something wrong this time, as he even made the skill icon just in case. He knows that choosing both seals and words for the constraint gives the highest magic attack power. Our hero has mastered all the hand signs and phrases through practice, which means this should work out. Suddenly the labyrinth accepts his second wish. It announces that those who remember the seals and mysteries of the forgotten great god have received their gratitude, so they will carry on his will. But Alon doesn't know what they mean by carrying on his will. As the black thing is being absorbed, the constraint works successfully. The labyrinth has decided to watch him, as he is the inheritor of the will. Just then, Evan yells to our boy that his second-year magic won't work here. Turns out the time was stopped, and our protagonist returns back to the very first moment when the golems start to attack them. Right now, he is all ready to test the constraint and the price it demands. Alon activates his newly awakened thunder-like power. By utilizing the laws of refraction, rebound, blue light, and linear diffraction alongside the use of signs, he sends a powerful blow toward the golems. Evan is stunned to see all of the constructs being destroyed by our young master. After just a moment, the golems are completely obliterated. With the threat neutralized, Alon and Evan start heading outside. Evan wonders if our protagonist was hiding his true power until now, but Alon simply shakes his head, which makes the mercenary even more confused. Evan has never seen anything like that in his 15 years of service, so he asks if that was truly second-year magic. Our boy nods firmly, though deep down, he is equally confused as well. Our hero recalls that the spell wasn't nearly that powerful in the game. In the turn-based combat system of Psychedelia, a spell can be enhanced using a sigil or an incantation per turn, but this time, he triggered a chain lightning spell that was strengthened over 5 times using 4 incantations and sigils. Stacked thunderblades were amplified together to form a configuration suited for large-scale lightning magic. In exchange for the restriction that required our hero to use a sigil and add an incantation for every spell, Alon has gained something else. He remembers being granted power for inheriting his will, which allowed him to amplify his magic tenfold. However, Alon didn't expect to get these kinds of results. Finally, the boat exits the canyon. Evan is super exhausted and wonders who could have created such a dark place, but our boy is lost in his own thoughts. He remembers that the Whispering Labyrinth had another name, one spread throughout the gaming community. The area was known as the Labyrinth of Palaon. Consequently, Alon tells Evan that this place was built by someone named Palaon, but Evan is too exhausted to fully understand. Deciding to head back east, Alon reflects on their journey, noting they have been out for 3 weeks for this quest. Furthermore, our protagonist has tasks to attend to once they return. Evan is shocked to find him more diligent than expected, and with that, they start heading back home. Our hero reflects that while choosing a sigil matching the spell's element increases its effect, and picking the right incantation strengthens its properties, the results here differ from the game. In the digital version, the visuals stayed the same while only the attack stats rose. On the contrary, each sigil here visibly affected the spell itself, and every incantation had its own transformation. Even if it is just a magic technique, Alon wonders if his mana control is exceptional enough to perceive those changes. He decides to test this theory once his mana recovers, feeling fully satisfied by the results in the end. Evan and Alon reach their horses to begin their return, unaware they are being observed from behind by Rhine. She returns to the canyon entrance and recites spells as the markings illuminate the walls. Soon, words appear stating that for a friend who would be left alone, the Swordmaster Palaon stood his ground. Rhine recalls that this man countered the invasion of the Black Ones and defeated Alicolica, the devourer of his subjects' hearts. This is the Radiant Emperor, the Great Palaon. Rhine is aware of this history because she was born under a great mission within the ancient library. The thing is, she overheard Alon when he mentioned the place was built by Palaon. Rhine notes how much the boy is different from the version of him recorded in history, signaling that something is extraordinary. Additionally, the Great Moon itself once called Palaon a friend worthy of reverence. Yet the incantation our hero whispered doesn't even exist in the records of the ancient library. She simply cannot understand his identity. With that, she steps out of the canyon, delighted to know that everything the Red Moon said was true. She feels a bit ashamed for just following orders when Deus arrives. Unexpectedly, Deus did not manage to obtain the required information because the man he was after has been eliminated. Rhine decides to report this for proper handling. Later that night at the Zenonia Count's house, Kalia realizes that the rumors regarding Alon were true indeed. His gaze was cold and unfeeling, and she recalls him calling her famous. She agrees with that assessment, as Count Zenonia is both powerful and renowned, yet she finds it weird that people find her famous since she rarely socializes. She turns to her father for his opinion, although he remains quiet. Shockingly, with a snap of her finger, she takes control of his body and sets him to work. She excitedly points out that no one can suspect her to be the one running the house while the Count himself is just a fool. She recalls how Alon spotted her spy from the shadows, just as someone requests her to come to her room immediately. Inside, she finds the dead body of her spy. According to her informer, the girl didn't reveal any secrets as the seal didn't activate. Kalia smiles, however, as she never expected herself to be exposed like that. She points out that she was caught off guard the moment they met. On the other hand, our hero is totally unaware of this whole situation. At the Altia ducal territory, Loria sits hopelessly as she realizes that Alon, the noble of the underworld, possesses eyes as cold as her father's. She considers him someone one must never make an enemy of, yet our boy was her last hope. She knows he cannot agree to a deal involving such heavy losses, but the problem is that she has nothing left because of her 4 siblings. Up until now, she has survived solely on her father's mercy and affection. As soon as she steps inside the family mansion, maids inform her that her sister, Lady Phelan, and her brother, Lord King, have taken their own lives. Loria is shocked by this unexpected news. She cannot understand how people who would easily stab their own family could kill themselves. When she asks about her other siblings, Tamalian and Marianne, the maids soon discover that the two have ended each other's lives inside a room. Chaos spreads through the estate as no one understands exactly what is happening. In the meantime, Radon quietly retreats from the estate, as he is the one behind the carnage. While the maids run in a panic, Loria recalls our protagonist saying that luck would be coming her way. She now takes him for someone who hides his true identity, waiting for the right opportunity to seize power as the true shadow behind the Count's house. Her body trembles as she realizes the true meaning behind his words. Right after this incident, Loria becomes the heir of the Altia Duchy. She shivers with regret for making a deal with our hero, a man she now views as a demon, but she reminds herself that she cannot betray him now. Having seen the end of those who crossed him, she decides to move forward without looking back. 2 months later, Alon receives a delivery from Duke Altia. Unexpectedly, the Duke has sent him Cernak's wine, an incredibly expensive gift where each bottle costs several thousand gold. Our hero finds a note inside and discovers it is actually from Loria, not the Duke himself. He wonders why she sent this to him, though he also feels a bit guilty for not helping her during their last encounter. According to the messenger from Altia, the gift was personally prepared and ordered to be delivered by hand. Alon is stunned as he realizes that Loria has officially become the Duke of Altia. In her office, Loria stretches after working non-stop for 2 whole months. Following the death of her father from illness, she ascended to the title during the succession ceremony. While her siblings' deaths were sudden, she managed to avoid all suspicion. All of this followed her participation in the ball, by which time her secret organization had already been wiped out by her siblings. After losing everything, she was horrified, but she now believes that Alon, who turned down her offer initially, took control of everything from behind the scenes. She feels stressed wondering how far our boy has planned. To avoid burdening him, she didn't even inform him of her father's death. She assumes his plan requires Altia's cooperation, which is why he helped her. After becoming the Duke, she unified all the organizations under Altia, yet she still feels she cannot compare to the power our protagonist has been concealing. She suspects our hero needs something else from her and wonders what she could possibly offer that a tycoon of the underworld like Palladio doesn't already have. She concludes it must be the renown of the Altia name. Consequently, she decides to focus on her duties, hoping her noble benefactor will be pleased by her gift when he eventually contacts her. Back in Alon's office, the Altia representative takes his leave. Our boy is in shock, unable to process her sudden rise to power. He feels as though something strange is happening. 5 years have now passed since he started living in the fantasy game. Evan approaches him, calling him young master, before correcting himself to Count. Although Alon is not officially a Count yet, he has been permitted to use the title since the new year. Internally, he feels gloomy because becoming a Count was never part of his plan, but he decides that once he gets used to it, he can start enjoying the perks of nobility. Right then, he receives a letter from Utia. Despite the passage of time, they still have no information regarding the assassin who killed Leo. Evan wonders if the goal is to take revenge, but after considering how his presence has already caused small differences in the game's timeline, our hero reveals he simply wants to be prepared for the worst. Evan teases him for finally acting like a Count, and Alon starts reading the letter. Utia informs him that everything is going smoothly and that everyone is fully absorbed in their hobbies. The report notes that Deus has become professional in puppet plays. Seolang enjoys playing games with friends. Ryan is immersed in her research, and Radan has taken up gardening. For Alon, these monthly letters from the orphanage have become a warm, familiar routine. He is happy to watch them grow while sponsoring them, even though he has never seen their faces. When he asks about their ages, Evan answers that they have reached the age to step into society as adults. Our boy feels a bit disappointed that they've grown so fast, but he accepts the truth and decides to let them go. Evan is puzzled, as he assumed those kids were rescued for a specific purpose, but our protagonist wants them to choose their own futures. He believes that since he ensured they won't awaken as sins, they will be fine on their own. In the game, each boss battle featured narration revealing their unique traits. Utia had a talent for faith, Deus for the sword, Ryan for research, Seolang for combat, and Radan for leadership. He believes that if he places them in the right positions, they will have bright futures. As he prepares to write to them, he decides to give each a gift. It takes our hero the whole day to finish the letters, which Evan then takes away to deliver. Alon hopes for those 5 children to take these messages and step out into the world. Later, at the orphanage, each of the 5 sins receives a personal letter. Some react with excitement, while others become very serious. All 5 children have grown up, and each of them receives a letter of their own. Instead of viewing these as mere correspondence, they treat them as formal directives. Before reading the new instructions, Yutia decides to review the older letters first. Seolang gets incredibly excited to read the messages that were previously only seen by Yutia, and soon, everyone is poring over the old documents. To the others, the letters don't seem like directive sheets. They read like ordinary, casual conversation. To this observation, Yutia explains that our boy ordered the letters to be disguised as normal conversation from the very beginning. She points out that in the first letter he wrote her, he asked about her well-being, and mentioned his second brother using him as a chair. Yutia interprets this as him pointing out a target for elimination, noting that he ordered her to report back afterward. She even reveals that the letter in which our hero instructed her to take care of the orphanage was actually a coded order to form the Blue Moon organization. This is how she has meticulously followed every word of our protagonist from the start. Deus notes that such methods must be to prevent information leaks, and Yutia agrees, stating that this is how they should properly decode the directives. However, Deus points out that it would be much easier to visit Alon in person or use a magic communicator. Radan concurs, noting the inherent risk of leakage through physical mail, but Yutia coldly reminds them that their role is simply to follow orders. Right then, Seolang suggests they finally read the new directives. The letters assign them to their new posts. Deus is ordered to Caliban, the land of knights. Seolang is instructed to head to a colony. Radan is assigned to the pleasure city, Raxus, and Rhine is sent to the labyrinth city, Lartania. Yutia, on the contrary, is instructed to go to the holy kingdom of Rosoria. Deus doesn't quite understand why our hero told him to become a knight, but he notes that Alon has decided to continue their sponsorship. Furthermore, the location of their individual gifts is written in each letter. Consequently, they all decide to head out instantly, with Yutia reminding them never to expose the name of the Blue Moon. 2 months pass as Alon continues researching magic and techniques. He asks Evan about the assassins who killed Leo, but Evan hasn't found any leads from the Information Guild. Our boy reflects on how much the game settings have changed since he interfered to rescue the 5 great sins. Loria, who should have died, has instead become the Duchess of Altia and is rapidly building up her underworld power. Suddenly, Alon orders Evan to stop the investigation into the assassins, believing he shouldn't involve himself further. In the game's setting, it is nearly impossible to evade the Information Guild's network. He begins to shiver, realizing he shouldn't bother with unforeseen situations that might lead to his death. He decides not to approach secret organizations, as they only react when harmed, and instructs Evan to drop the matter entirely. Right then, Evan reports that Deus has been knighted in Caliban. 3 months later, Evan adds that Deus has already created his own knight order. Alon is stunned, as that implies Deus has reached an expert level despite not being a knight for very long. Evan also mentions that the 5th Master Knight is expected to appear within 10 years, a title known as the Sword of Caliban. Our hero feels immensely proud of him. 6 months later, a full year after the Sins became independent, Alon finally becomes a count following his succession ceremony. Evan enters to inform him that Deus has officially become one of the 5 Swords of Caliban, a Master Knight. Alon pauses, murmuring in surprise, as he wonders if only Swordmasters can hold that title. In the game, a Swordmaster is a transcendent who has surpassed the Aura Blade and awakened an ability called Derivation. According to Evan, Deus hasn't managed to awaken Derivation yet, but the country granted him the title regardless after he defeated the 4th Sword, following Caliban's loss of a Master Knight to the Northern Barbarians. While it usually takes 15 years just to wield mana and decades to master Derivation, Deus reached this level in just a year, despite being totally unaware of swordsmanship previously. Our boy believes Deus will soon surpass Reinhardt, the youngest Master Knight in the game, if he can just bridge the gap with Derivation. Our hero starts to daydream about the benefits he might receive from this, but then he sighs, thinking he may not get anything at all. Evan waves this off, noting that our protagonist only sends letters to Yutia. Even so, the letters Yutia receives always include updates about the other sins, as they are all keeping an eye on each other. Alon hopes for at least a thank you from Yutia for the gifts, and feeling a bit disappointed, he slaps his own face to focus. He reminds himself that although they awakened as the 5 great sins, they haven't destroyed the kingdom. What matters most is that the children are living well. The scene shifts to the capital of Caliban, Kurdum, specifically the High Noble Residential District where the Lunar Eclipse Knight Order resides. Inside the Great Mansion, Deus Macallion, now the captain of the Eclipse Knights and the youngest Master Knight, observes his sister from a window. They wave at each other. Even after a year, Deus finds the memory of his transition embarrassing. He had lost everything to the Black Ones, leaving him with nothing but uncontrollable hatred. The Great Moon, Alon, saving his life hadn't been enough to earn his loyalty initially. However, the promise that he could eventually take revenge himself kept him loyal to the Blue Moon. Working for the organization was dangerous, but he didn't care about his safety, completing missions for years to pave a path toward his enemies. Finally, he received his first personal directive. Our hero provided the location of a gift in a small southern inn at Regat 10. Though Deus didn't care for gifts, he went anyway. To his surprise, he found his long-lost younger sister at that inn. He had thought he lost everything, but through Elon, he found a sister as precious as life itself. Deus finds his sister, whom he had long believed was dead. Her name is Shilly, and as they later sit to enjoy tea together, he asks what happened after they were parted. Shilly explains that after their separation, she was taken away by them. She waited in the darkness for a very long time, and just as her turn came to be killed, she was fortunately rescued. A few years later, she was on the verge of being sold at a slave market when someone again cleared all obstacles to save her. That savior was Evan. Since that incident, Shilly has received continuous medicine and support. She even received a letter from our protagonist, who assured her that she needn't worry about her brother because both of them were safe under the name of Palatio. Deus is stunned to see Alon's name, as he never expected the man to expose his true identity. He wonders how his sister could know of the Great Moon, especially since our boy had never been told about Deus's family. Even Utia only knew that Deus had been attacked by the Black Ones. Suddenly, Deus recalls Utia's insistence that the Great Moon knows everything. All of his questions fit together like puzzle pieces and disappear. While he initially couldn't understand Utia's fervor, he now feels like the foolish one. He realizes that our hero knew the truth all along and was providing hints to the child who would otherwise have survived alone. Seeing him completely zoned out, Shilly calls out to her brother. He pats her head, noting that while his sword had previously acted only on hatred, the Great Moon had overlooked his flaws and shown mercy. For Deus, who had lived only for revenge against the Black Ones, the survival of his family fills him with deep gratitude. He finally understands why Utia follows Alon, not as a blind believer, but as a loyal subject to a man of infinite foresight. To repay our hero, Deus vows to reach the pinnacle of Caliban as a master knight and create an elite guard of top swordsmen. Fast-forwarding to the present, Deus has formed his own group and prepares for a briefing. Standing before his elite unit, he declares that the upcoming expedition will be the foundation for the eclipse. He waits for the day he can offer a repayment that satisfies the Great Moon, strictly instructing his knights to prove their worth under the moon before they depart to battle the barbarians. Back at the Palatio estate, Alon is resting peacefully, satisfied that the 5 children have grown up. Suddenly, a gust of wind blows his messy research notes across the room. Since returning from the labyrinth, our protagonist has focused on researching phrases. After organizing his results, he notes that refraction enhances the imperfection of completed spells to expand their area of effect. Repulsion alters the form of the projectile, causing it to transfer, while blue light enhances parallel magic like lightning. Linear diffraction, on the other hand, grants penetration for critical hits. Our hero has also established strict rules for these phrases. One must not use unfitting terms. Phrases cannot be repeated, and he is limited to 4 arcs. Due to his mana capacity, he can only use this magic once a day. Since the phrases and beasts of Babylonia were a forgotten concept in the original game, he had to research the mechanics himself. To test 2 months of experiments, Elon unleashes his Thunderlight magic. By removing the central point of the gathered magical sphere, he creates an electrical shock through imbalance. Even his seemingly weak magic gains purpose as he chants fixation, compression, collapse, fleeting full bloom. A massive amount of magical power is unleashed. Observing the destruction, our boy concludes that the order of the phrases is vital, remembering how he failed when he attempted to use collapse first. Suddenly, someone yells from behind in disbelief. It is Kalia, who stands with her butler in absolute shock. They refer to his power as Origin, a unique magic supposedly reserved only for 7th Circle mages. Alon is stunned by the comparison, as 7th Circle mages occupy the very top of the magical hierarchy. Kalia and her butler wait in the reception room of the Paltio family, having arrived with 2 distinct purposes. First, the butler carries a card capable of dealing terrible damage to Zenonia. Additionally, Kalia wanted to confirm Elon's true intentions and sense the magic that swallowed Palladio, while also gauging the strength of the organization protecting him. To her surprise, however, she finds her butler shivering in fear. Despite being beyond Shell, a 5th-rank mage who was expelled from the Mage Tower for human experiments and is capable of eliminating an entire battalion with ease, the man is trembling. He has remained arrogant even toward Kalia over the years she supported him, but now, he is visibly shaken. Just then, our protagonist enters the room and coldly inquires about their business. Kalia offers an apology for the sudden visit, explaining that she ended up wandering around while trying to find him. Alon then clarifies that he did not use an origin. By his own estimation, he would only be around the 2nd rank. He adds that magic doesn't have an actual function, internally reflecting that his magic serves neither for defense nor attack. However, both Kalia and Biankel interpret his words as a sign that he simply doesn't want them to expose his power to others. Stuttering in fear, Biankel admits he must have been wrong. Alon feels a sense of relief and directly asks again about their reason for visiting. Kalia explains that they were on another business trip and happened to be nearby, so they decided to pay their respects, implying there is no specific motive. Our hero then mentions that he needs to attend to his work and cannot spare much more time. Kalia gets up, thanking Aelin for granting them even a brief moment. Before they depart, he suggests she pay a visit to Duke Altia if she wants someone to talk to, as he believes the two of them will get along quite well. Taking this to heart, she makes a plan to visit the Duke. As our boy and Evan see them off, Evan notes that Zenonia, a ruined Western family, has come to visit them. Alon has no idea why, but he is feeling under the weather. He worries that if rumors of him using an origin are exposed, those struggling for power will inevitably come after him. As our protagonist turns to go back inside, he believes that Zenonia would never truly approach Altia, as both are rivals in the underworld. All Alon wishes is for them to never return. Inside the carriage, Kalia asks Biankel if that power was an origin. The butler shakes his head, and while still trembling, explains that an origin is magic that draws its own laws upon the canvas of absolute, immutable principles. However, what he saw through his observation eye was that the Count's magic canvas was being torn apart. This means Aelon was testing the absolute principles themselves. Biankel observed him fixing lightning in place, wrapping and collapsing the laws, yet still manifesting the spell. This is a miracle that defies reason, and the butler suspects this was actually the work of a forgotten great god. His head hurts as he reminds himself to stop thinking further, for such thoughts are dangerous. Having earned praise for pursuing ancient knowledge and researching the magic of the Forgotten Era, he concludes that they should never oppose Count Paltio or make an enemy of him. Kalia sighs, realizing there was no point in trying to discern his intentions. Recalling his suggestion to visit Duke Altia, she believes she has already become one of Aelon's pawns. 2 years pass since the 5 children were sent off on their own, and our hero asks for any new information regarding them. While he receives no direct news about the children, he unexpectedly learns that Zenonia County and the Altia Ducal House have formed an alliance. This news drops like a heavy weight on our boy, as he never expected the two pillars of the underworld to unite. Furthermore, their alliance appears proper on the surface under the underworld accord. Alon panics, believing that even after raising those little sinners, this shadow alliance will surely cause the Asteria kingdom to collapse. He cannot believe Kalia took his words so seriously that day, but he tries to shrug it aside, thinking it must be temporary. Nevertheless, he decides to prepare just in case and immediately starts writing to Kalia. He wants to apologize if he seemed blunt, inarticulate, or cold during their meeting. He then orders Evan to deliver the message. Later, our protagonist reads a letter from Utia and finds no information regarding Radan and Seolong. He wonders if Seolong has died, thinking that if they had followed his instructions and found the gift, they could have become a warrior's symbol worthy of even a Baba Yaga. In the game, there was an item called the Sacred Beast of the Golden Mane Tribe. According to the game setting, if the Sin of Pride hadn't become a fallen sinner, she would have been a great Langland warrior. Alon had even told her about the hidden treasure she could use for funds. But the bitter truth is that her land is a nation where one can only seize the world through power. The scene shifts to the desert nation of Colony. In a strange place, Seolong, now wearing Alon's gift, stretches as her ordeal finally ends. She thanks him for the precious gift, having initially thought the essence of the Golden Mane tribe was just a random charm. She realizes now that the stories she heard as a child were not just fairy tales. Her tribe consists of descendants of the Golden Mane tribe, the kings of all beastkin. This tool is a legendary heirloom passed down for hundreds of years, granting power and divine authority. After getting her hands on this, Seolong faced every trial within her inner world. On the day she was dying as a test subject, the Great Moon saved her life and gave her the power to take revenge on the Black Dragon who eliminated her parents. Therefore, she has decided to repay Aelon sincerely. She knows the true meaning behind the gift was not for her to remain an ordinary gladiator. Instead, she plans to become the strongest gladiator ever and gather the Golden Mane tribe to restore their glory. Eventually, she will slay the Black Dragon. Staring at the moon, she decides to dedicate all her efforts to her savior, aiming to bring back the glory of her clan under the Blue Moon after 500 years. This clan remains the greatest of all beastkin and the undisputed king among their kind. In Alon's office, Evan provides updates regarding the 5 children, gathered by the Information Guild. According to the Guild's reports, Seolong has earned the title of Golden Flash due to her overwhelming activity in Colony. Luckily, our hero is glad to hear she is doing well. Evan agrees, noting that Colony is a place where strength allows one to get away with almost anything. Unfortunately, he hasn't heard anything about Radan since he left to learn the trade in Raxus. Although Evan has some leads, they are still being verified for reliability. Suddenly, our boy coldly asks if Evan is busy. Taking a pause, Evan reveals that he has already finished every task on his plate. Alon then reminds Evan that they need to prepare early, as it will take roughly a month just to reach the magic tower. Evan flinches, as he was entirely unaware they were heading there. It turns out our protagonist had simply forgotten to mention the plan. While Evan points out that it only takes a week to reach the green magic tower, Alon has decided to visit the blue magic tower instead, located near the Labyrinth City. With that, Evan begins the preparations. Alon, meanwhile, clearly dislikes riding in a carriage. However, there is an item at their destination that can support his small mana reserves, making the trip a necessity. In the game, our boy had spent a great deal of time grinding in Lartania. The labyrinth at the center of the city served as the primary leveling map of psychedelia. The deeper a player ventured, the better the items they could obtain. Although countless players entered, no one ever reached the end, leading to frequent complaints that the map simply continued downward forever. Consequently, relics and artifacts are continuously discovered in this endless maze, making certified magic appraisers highly respected and wealthy professionals. There, a girl named Rhine is soon to take her appraiser exam. Our hero wonders if the gift he sent her was too small, as it was merely an item intended to aid in equipment appraisal. He decides to provide extra support later if it proves insufficient. The scene shifts to the labyrinth city of Lartania. The city is teeming with explorers and mercenaries and is governed by no one. Nestled in a southern corner is a secretive appraisal shop called Merda. The shop has gained fame for its unique services, attracting nobles and A-rank explorers as its primary clientele. Among these customers is the Lord of Lartania, who is currently visiting the shop where Rhine works. She has just completed the appraisal of a device that generates flames using mana. The Lord feels grateful, noting that the item is a relic capable of holding an imprint. When he inquires further, Rhine explains that a pinch of mana will maintain the flame for an hour. Fully satisfied, the Lord leaves the shop. Rhine then turns her attention to another device that can also be imprinted. The reason this corner shop is so famous is due to the imprint known as Screech, a gift from our boy. Rhine happily repeats the words from his letter, which encouraged her to become an appraiser. Initially, she didn't understand the command. She believes her master is a friend of Palatio and a figure from the forgotten era of outer gods. While she thought everything was meant to help deal with the Black Ones, she couldn't initially see how being an appraiser connected to that goal. However, upon seeing the gift, she realized its nature was different from anything she knew. She obtained the Eye of the Tail, which quickly identifies items below a certain mana threshold. Rhine realizes the true nature of this item doesn't even exist in the library. After the seals were lifted, the imprint opened. She decided then to gain power over the Black Ones in the future, viewing this as both an ability and a means to offer sacrifices. Currently, she has 252 sacrifices left until it reaches full bloom. In exchange for increasing the relic's stats, it absorbs something that causes its eye to change, though it only reacts to specific high-ranking relics. If the wrong item is used, the accumulated power vanishes. Correctly appraising artifacts and distinguishing high-rank sacrifices is a job only she can do, having been born within the Library of Eternity. With a vicious smile, she decides to do everything necessary to deal with the Black Wolf, believing it all aligns with the view of the Great Moon. 3 weeks later, Alon and Evan reach the Blue Magic Tower. Unfortunately, the Tower Master is away. Instead, they are met by the Vice Master, a Sixth Circle mage named Pedia Clint, who tells them to state their business and leave. Surprisingly, our protagonist finds her face familiar from the main story. Since the current time is before the original plot begins, Pedia is still only the Vice Master. In the game, she is a genius who reaches the 8th Circle and becomes the Tower Master in her 20s. This tower possesses massive combat power and holds a status equal to nobility due to its monopoly on specific necessities. As a Vice Master, Pedia has transcended ordinary humanity. After Alon reveals his identity, he states he is there regarding the Time Rift. Pedia, who is busy searching for documents, pauses when he claims he can remove it. A Time Rift, or Simon, is a door to an unknown subspace that appears where magic is heavily used, creating anomalies and destruction. Using her observation eye, Pedia asks if our boy truly believes he can achieve that with his current talent. She immediately tells him to leave. When Alon tries to explain, Pedia cuts him off, pointing out that he shouldn't boast about removing the rift while keeping the treasure inside. She slams her desk in rage, clearly exhausted by the many people who have come to her with similar claims. Our hero feels she is being unfair, yet he calmly requests that she guide him to the rift so she can see his ability for herself. Pedia remains unmoved, believing he is only there to manipulate public opinion after gaining the title of Count through sheer luck. Suddenly, she unleashes a massive amount of mana to prevent him from creating a scene. Alon notes that while she seems busy, she is unexpectedly up to date on gossip, and surprisingly scary. Even though he is frightened, he feels desperate. He goes straight to her with a deal. If he fails to remove the rift, he will sign over his entire fortune to her. Seeing that she still isn't backing off, he offers to swear a mana oath. This condition interests her, and later, she shows him the way. She reminds our protagonist one last time that if he fails, everything he owns belongs to her. As he steps toward the rift, Pedia wonders if he is a mastermind or just a lucky man. She smirks, concluding he must be a lucky fool for coming here without knowing his place, especially since she noted his mana is barely at the second circle level. She believes he can do nothing. Meanwhile, Alan recalls that one usually doesn't have to work this hard to close a rift. They typically spit out an artifact and disappear naturally within 3 months. Because of this, research on them had stopped. However, this specific rift has been causing trouble for over 2 years. Standing before the anomaly, Pedia again tells him to back off if he is incapable. She notices he is preparing to use his bare hand rather than a staff. Deep down, she knows ancient magic tomes describe this as a primitive method, and she tries to stop him from doing something so reckless. But our hero only concentrates on his work. Within a moment, Pedia's body refuses to move. In fact, everything around her has stopped. Looking through her observation eye, she unexpectedly sees a massive red eye looming right above Alan. Pedia's observation eye activates, immediately beginning to analyze the anomaly before them. After a series of rapid calculations, she begins to see strings of text filled with dark, ominous words. Suddenly, a giant red eye manifests and reaches out toward her, projecting an absolute demand that leaves her face drenched in sweat. Deep down, she understands the weight of this command perfectly. After a brief moment, the giant eye closes and vanishes into thin air. With the phenomenon gone, Alan informs her that the gate is officially closed. To him, the task was relatively simple, as it only required specific items and methods. He then moves to secure the relic he just acquired. Naturally, our protagonist realized he might need to use this method again in the future, so he had cast a convincing spell on Pedia to smooth things over. He wonders briefly if she fell for it, and it seems she has. She immediately decides to keep the event a total secret. However, noticing her making strange expressions, Alan begins to doubt his success. When he attempts to approach her, she cuts him off with a yell, frantically insisting that she can absolutely keep a secret and won't tell a soul. Our hero is left utterly confused by her erratic behavior. Later, our protagonist prepares to head home with Evan. Unexpectedly, Pedia approaches our boy and offers him a mana recovery potion she brewed herself. Upon closer inspection, Alan realizes it is a top-grade potion. Pedia murmurs a question, asking if he likes it, leaving our boy stunned. Just 2 bottles of such a potion cost as much as several lower-rank versions, making the gift incredibly expensive. He wonders if she is truly this thankful for him closing the gate, but in reality, she is only trying to please him because she is keeping a secret of her own. She panics and offers to sign a mana oath to prove her discretion. Alan cannot fathom why she would take an oath over something so trivial, but before he can clarify the situation, she takes the oath immediately. Seeing her reaction, our hero concludes that she simply doesn't want to clear up the misunderstanding. Regardless, our hero has successfully acquired the relic he wanted from the Blue Magic Tower, along with 5 bottles of potion and a binding oath. Inside the carriage, Evan points out that while the relic was difficult to obtain, it looks far more basic than he expected. Alan remains quiet, only revealing that he absolutely needed it. The item is actually the Seal of the Unholy One, a bracelet with a gem designed to absorb and store mana from the atmosphere. It seems to be working perfectly. Although its storage capacity isn't massive, it is more than enough to fill our hero's mana hole. Comparing his limited mana to the support item, he reminds himself that his path is one of magical research and self-preservation, not frontline combat. Still, his thoughts shift back to Pedia, as he remains unsure when exactly she developed her misunderstanding. When they were departing, Alan tried to explain that he was only a second circle mage, but she merely gave him a thumbs up and nodded, seemingly agreeing with everything he said. Reflecting on this now, our boy realizes her reaction was strangely similar to Kalia's. He feels a lingering sense of unease, though he calms himself with the thought that they likely won't meet again in the future. The scene shifts to the Altia estate, where Loria welcomes Kalia. Kalia greets her by commenting on her beauty, and Loria feels comfortable in her presence since they don't need to constantly assess rank or power between them. Strangely, both women find themselves occupied by thoughts of Count Palladio. When Alan suggested that Kalia visit Duke Altia, she only truly understood his intent once she followed the order. As they talk, they realize that both are under the influence of our hero. Their alliance was essentially forged by Count Palladio's command. With him standing above them, their previous power struggles feel like absolute nothing. Because of this, Zenonia and Altia have grown closer. Loria asks why Kalia has arrived so early, as their meeting wasn't scheduled until next month. It turns out Kalia is there to discuss the letter Alan sent the day she left his estate. Even though it appears to be an ordinary apology, both Loria and Kalia are convinced there is a hidden meaning within the text. They decide to decode every single word, searching for a subtext. Eventually, they come to the conclusion that Alan dislikes both the aristocratic and royalist factions. They wonder if he intends for them to eliminate both groups. eventually deciding that our protagonist wants to drive out the existing nobles to establish a new regime. Loria now believes this is why he needed Altia's prestige and helped her become a duke. She is certain that if the Overlord of the West joins them, they will succeed. Meanwhile, back at the Blue Magic Tower, the Tower Master learns everything regarding the closure of the Time Rift. The puzzle pieces begin to fit together on their own, forming a picture of Alon's influence. In the meantime, our boy sneezes, a side effect of the conversation happening behind his back, and nearly chokes on a sweet potato. He and Evan are currently taking a break on their journey home. Just then, a letter arrives from Utia. She has successfully become a priestess in the specific location selected by our hero. The Tower Master of the Blue Magic Tower finally returns. His name is Salem Micardo, an 8th Circle mage of immense power. Seeing Pedia looking under the weather, he asks if she is all right. With a weak voice, she informs him that she has completed everything he entrusted to her. Noticing her extreme exhaustion, Salem grows worried. He reflects on how she became a vice master at such a young age. She is so blessed with talent that her pride previously knew no bounds. She was always so strict with new recruits that she often moved them to tears. Yet because she was so serious about her magic, Salem never tried to correct her personality. He believed that once she reached the 7th circle, she would automatically become humble after realizing how limited her achievements truly were. Now, however, the situation seems very strange. He tries to cheer her up with a joke about his mission in the northern region, asking if the workload was really too tough for her. She only sighs and reveals that Alon has closed the Time Rift. Unfortunately, she cannot explain how it was closed because she is bound by a mana oath. With a sad face, she simply endures the restriction, unable to say anything more. Salem pats her head, and deep down, he is actually pleased to see that her arrogance has finally been broken. He wonders if the magic used was an origin. Pedia is so crushed by the experience that she doesn't even brush his hand away. Consequently, Salem becomes deeply interested in our protagonist. 1 month has passed since our hero returned from the Blue Magic Tower. After acquiring the Mark of the Unrighteous, Alon has gone even deeper into researching magic phrases. Since he can now use magic more times per day, he is making rapid progress. After discovering a new rule, he writes it down in his notes. While the progress seems to align with his arrangements, he isn't entirely certain of the cause. At that moment, Evan points out that Alon's magic has become significantly stronger. To Evan, it didn't seem like 2nd circle magic before, but now it feels like it is on an entirely different level compared to a few months ago. In fact, Alon's magic just created a massive crater in the ground. Our boy believes this kind of destruction should be impossible for gravity alone. A standard 2nd circle gravity spell shouldn't be enough to crush the Earth to this extent, even at maximum power. Now Alon realizes he wasn't imagining things when he felt his strength increasing. This obvious boost in power is likely not due to practice or the phrases themselves, as higher efficiency usually just means better precision. Phrases act like trigger words to alter attributes, and after months of researching arrangements for gravity, our protagonist has started using set phrases interchangeably. He assumes the power boost is just a small gain from optimizing these arrangements. He simply tells Evan that he is in good condition, which is why he seems stronger. Afterward, Evan delivers a letter from Udia. Receiving it, Alon decides to head back inside, as he has already used up his 3 magic spells for the day. Internally, he considers that his sudden strength might be a reward for a curse. In the East, a curse is a ritual where one sacrifices themselves to cast a spell on another. The target suffers a penalty but gains compensation in return. Since no one near our hero is involved with the East, he considers it a possibility, or perhaps he is receiving faith from somewhere. He shrugs the idea aside, reminding himself that he is just a count from a small kingdom ignored by the underworld. He tells himself it's perfectly fine to live without overthinking everything. The scene shifts to the Holy Kingdom of Rosario and its capital, Ryanel. It is a city of pure white that worships Chironia, the goddess of the moon and peace. In the Eastern Prayer House, a knight named Locke greets Utia. He knows she is a lower-rank nun who doesn't even wear the sash of Holy Grace, yet he shows her great respect. He reports that he has saved 8 children and 25 lives from small villages in the East and West, believing he was only able to do so because of her guidance. Utia shrugs it off, saying he is the one who performed the good deeds. However, Locke insists she guided someone as insignificant as him. For 20 years, he was unable to sense even a trace of divine power, and was about to give up in despair. At that moment, Utia reached out and told him to have faith in the moon. At first, he didn't understand, but he prayed to the moon for several days anyway. Unexpectedly, he was soon able to build divine power. Though he briefly feared he had stepped onto the path of heresy by favoring the moon over Lady Chironia, he now believes all power borrowed from the gods is the same. The sacred artifacts of the goddess shine brilliantly in his hands, proving his divine power. When he previously asked Udia why she pointed him toward the moon, she explained that while faith comes from invisible belief, it takes a long time to grow. She claimed it is easier to gain results from something that actually exists in the sky. To her, the moon will always be on his side. Locke agreed, thinking it was a better way for a person filled with doubt to find certainty. Back in the present, Yutia tells him to show his gratitude by praying with her. As it is prayer time, many people have gathered. They enter the hall, and Yutia goes straight to the sanctuary to begin praying to the great moon. Our protagonist's former ward has officially become a prominent nun of the Holy Kingdom. While reading Yutia's letter, Alon feels a touch of frustration, finding nothing particularly special in this update either. He takes the news as a sign that everyone is doing well, yet he cannot help but feel a bit lonely. After all, he only receives letters from Yutia and no one else. Our protagonist tries to reason through this, thinking that since the other children never saw his face, he is likely just a nice stranger who showed them a bit of kindness. His primary goal was to keep them on the right path so they wouldn't destroy the world in the future, and having achieved that, Alon reminds himself there is no reason to feel disappointed. With that thought, he attains a sense of inner peace. Our boy reflects on how Yutia still writes to him every month despite her busy schedule, though it still stings slightly to think that only the eldest of the group recognizes his efforts. Suddenly, he jumps in shock upon realizing Evan is also in the room. Luckily, he calms himself down immediately as Evan reports that he has gathered information about the kids from the Information Guild. Strangely, Radon has become a pirate. Our hero is so stunned that he remains speechless for a moment before demanding that Evan tell him everything in detail. Evan sits down to reveal big news regarding Seolang and Deos. It turns out Seolang has won 23 consecutive challenges out of 100 against Baba Yaga. For context, the record for most consecutive wins is 41, held by the Lion King, a character who actually joins as a companion in the game. Furthermore, the colony military relies heavily on these fighters because they are incredibly powerful, and there is a high chance Seolang might break that record soon. Evan then moves on to Deos's knights, who have successfully taken down Kurga of the Snowfield, one of the 8 barbarian chieftains. These chieftains have become superhuman through various rituals, a fact Alon knows quite well since he defeated the barbarians and even their god, Ultholtus, in the game. He is relieved that he doesn't have to deal with them now, especially since Ultholtus only appears after the 5 great sins descend. Consequently, our protagonist no longer needs to worry about Deus. However, he briefly wonders if he should have visited them in person to enjoy some of the benefits of their success. Turning to the next report, Evan discusses Rhine, who has become an appraiser capable of applying black engravings to artifacts to enhance their abilities. After hearing about the others, Alon refocuses on the shocking news of Radan's piracy. Evan explains the situation involving the 7 isles off the coast of Raxus. Among these, the largest is the first isle, where Radan has recently become the captain. This news is a massive shock to Alon, as he never expected such a path for the boy. He recalls a meme he once laughed at online that has now become his grim reality. A story about someone who sponsored a child hoping they would grow up to live an ordinary life, only for that child to become a pirate. Our boy certainly didn't send Radan away for this. According to the original character settings, Radan is highly skilled at detection. As a rare member of the Sea God tribe, he is naturally free in the water. Because there are many rare artifacts in the Raxus Sea, our hero had recommended he become a treasure hunter, and even gave him a gift to assist with detection. While Evan is quite happy to see Radan becoming a big shot, Alon is stressing out. He wonders how the boy managed to take out the captain of the First Isle, considering all the captains are superhuman and the pirates of the 7 Isles have never lost a sea battle. He speculates that Radan might have collected the best relics from the old era. In the game, Alon spent a great deal of time on the treasure hunter minigame to upgrade his own gear, so he assumes Radan must have climbed the ranks using superior equipment. Still, for Alon, it is difficult to accept a son becoming a pirate. Meanwhile, in the maritime city of Raxus, at the heart of the Principality of Korkia, the First Isle stands as the largest of the 7 pirate paradises. Its former captain has been eliminated by a man supposedly blessed by the Heavenly King through sacrificial offerings, the great pirate Crimson Slayer, Radan. Despite his new title, Radan remains confused about the Great Moon. Initially, he considered the man a kind soul. Radan would have died as a test subject if he hadn't met Yutia and awakened his powers. To be honest, he wanted to follow Yutia, which is why he followed the Blue Moon. But everything changed when he received a direct order from the Great Moon. Now he questions if becoming a treasure hunter meant anything at all. He is driven by a desire for revenge against those who wronged him. His tribe, which lived peacefully on a hidden island, was completely destroyed by the beings of darkness. When the survivors eventually left the island, hunters killed Radan's parents and sold him into slavery. Therefore, being a simple treasure hunter didn't align with the vengeance he sought. By the time the orders reached him, Radan had already decided to follow them. His resolve is hardened when he spots a ship filled with the very same hunters who murdered his parents. According to their captain, they have received the Heavenly King's blessing as chosen pirates. Raiden initially dismissed the talk of a Heavenly King as nonsense. However, he discovered that power is granted by the Sea God Claired only through sacred rituals using parts of the Sea God tribe's bodies. Raiden eventually realized the horrific truth. All the captains of the 7 Isles are using that power because his parents' bodies were split into 7 parts and distributed across the isles. Radon believed that the Great Moon was behind all of this, which is why he had been sent to this specific location. He was initially shocked, as he had never mentioned his tragic history to anyone, yet he felt that the Great Moon was actively helping him achieve his revenge. However, at that time, Radon felt he was not strong enough to stand against the superhumans who possessed the power of the sea god. Right then, he realized there had to be a reason for the gift he had received. He came to believe that the Great Moon had planned everything, paving a pathway for his vengeance. Shortly after, he started practicing with the gift, the Goggles of Amrita. Through this device, Radon was able to find artifacts hidden deep in the ocean. The items he recovered were powerful enough to compensate for his lack of natural strength. After coming out of the ocean with a vast collection of artifacts, he considered himself a fool for merely feeling grateful. Since the Great Moon had kept his promise, he had not only placed Radon's targets before him, but had also provided the power necessary to strike them down. At that point, the boy finally understood every order written in the letter. Radon concluded that the Great Moon wished for him to exact his revenge and take control of the Seven Isles. He called Utia, telling her that everything was for the Great Moon. Those words, which once meant nothing, were now glowing with trust in his heart. 3 months later, autumn finally arrives. This season marks the time for Asteria's biennial Grand Social Assembly. Alan is set to participate in the assembly because attendance is mandatory once every 4 years. But our hero is clearly hating the idea. Soon, the carriages of the Krild and Edorn families join him as planned. It is currently the norm for nobles to travel in large groups to avoid trouble with bandits. While staying at an inn that evening, Alon is surprisingly questioned by other nobles about why he has only one guard. They pointedly suggest that he must have a very tight budget after accidentally becoming the count. Unfortunately, instead of bandits, he is being troubled by the nobles themselves. Historically, the wealth of Palladio was built in the vast underworld of the East. However, our boy is fully satisfied with his current life after letting go of those criminal enterprises. Since he considers the underworld far too dangerous, he is content living without any major problems. Consequently, the underworld of the East fell under the control of smaller groups, and the rumors that Alon became a count purely by luck have become accepted as facts. The false rumors of him being a mastermind behind the count's house slowly disappeared, and he has now been demoted to the title of Lucky Brat. Meanwhile, the nobles continue to mock him for being short on funds. Alon feels they are crossing the line, but then something clicks in his mind. These people are actually the victims of the Palladio family. Both House Krild and House Edorn were once completely under the thumb of Palladio, and at this moment, they are merely venting the sorrow they once suffered. To our protagonist, they seem like nothing more than a bunch of petty internet trolls, so he decides to ignore them entirely. In the meantime, Evan brings some grilled corn from the kitchen, which our boy finds absolutely delicious. As the two of them enjoy their snack, the lords of Krild and Edorn keep talking. It almost sounds like a rap. Alon and Evan simply enjoy their corn while completely tuning out the other nobles. The scene then shifts to the northern region, a land of bitter cold inhabited by barbarians. The place looks as though no life could possibly exist there. The captain of the barbarians, the great Kulkan, one of the 8 barbarian chieftains, has finally fallen at the hands of none other than Deus. For barbarians, death in combat is considered honorable and glorious, but unexpectedly, this battle ended in a defeat caused by a cowardly ambush. The barbarians were caught in the scheme of a Caliban knight who had suggested a formal duel only to betray them. Now, the great Kulkan lies on the bitter snow, feeling a deep sense of shame to end his life this way. Suddenly, he hears a voice telling him to call upon the name they all once worshipped. On the verge of death, the great Kulkan whispers the name of their god, Ulthultus. Surprisingly, his body starts to move again at the mention of his deity. He seeks help by calling out the name once more. Ulthultus hears him loud and clear, and the god decides to fulfill his desire. The journey of the nobles continued to the social venue. The mockery didn't stop even after the other family joined with their carriages. But Alon just ignored it, because not feeding the trolls is just basic gamer etiquette. They came out at night. But both our boy and Evan fully ignored the mocking words. This only makes those two nobles nothing but frustrated. Both of them discuss that Alon really doesn't have any additional escort forces. We have checked with an artifact and have found nothing. Therefore, this made them believe that the rumors about him being a poor noble are actually true. Consequently, they now plan to execute an underworld expansion plan. This way, they will finally test the astronomical money and power through the underworld for themselves. They decide to teach our protagonist a lesson after taking the backside. Their plan is to show our hero how scary this world actually is. Just then, they discover something terrifying as they scream for their lives. It turns out they have been surrounded by monsters. All the knights and mages get active. With some kind of lightning spell, a mage exposes the army of goblins, which is completely armed. Unfortunately, if they are in a very high number, they can easily eliminate everyone present there. The thing is, these goblins have already taken down the Watchers and came inside, but something seems different. The bodies of goblins are covered with some kind of stones. Their build is entirely different, plus they are infused with mana. which unfortunately means that their physical ability is completely different from what the knights know. Soon those goblins start to attack, as the ground beneath them gets fully destroyed. Knight after knight falls in the hands of goblins. Fortunately, someone uses the third circle spell, Rock Wall, and second circle shield. It is none other than our boy, Alon. He has taken a step forward, as he uses the phrases he has practiced till now. As a result, most of the goblins get caught up inside a giant magic orb that flies from the ground. With the next phrase, vacuum, the orb starts emitting rocks which fall on the goblins. Everyone watching him gets shocked, but our protagonist reminds them to pay attention to the battle. Soon, the remaining goblins charge forward. Therefore, the knights and mages start countering them. Our hero also doesn't stop and uses magic to take down the goblins. Evan also assists him. The battle continues from night to the next morning. In the end, humans are victorious. But everyone wonders about Alon's power. On the other hand, he has turned pale because he has just saved himself from dying. Even though his daily spell count has gone up, it's still only 3 or 4. In the middle of the fight, his mana hole completely went empty, and he became just a normal person. Even with Evan, losing the ability to protect himself was terrifying. Seeing him shivering, Evan gets worried if he really is fine, but our boy insists he is. At first he was planning to go alone because everyone was so noisy, but it's a good thing that he has traveled with the nobles. Putting that aside, he points out that Amethyst is the biggest problem. He wonders why did a descent happen. Back in the game, divine descent is a strange phenomenon that occurs when an outer lord tries to descend. That causes affected monsters to become stronger and more vicious. Our protagonist wonders if this should be happening or not. The outer lords, who should only appear after the 5 great sins awake and the world gets destroyed, have started to come down to this land. Our boy gets a headache as he can't think of a reason for this because the kids haven't awakened as the 5 great sins. Therefore, he decides to gather more information for resolution. If things continue this way, Alon will consider himself dead. Finally, all the nobles arrive at the Rotogray ducal family estate. Our count feels nauseated after the long journey. With that, the curtain of the grand social has risen. Inside the ballroom, Alon notes how everything there is made of gold, making it the perfect venue for a grand social. Evan adds that their goal is simply to show off their wealth. Seeing Duke Rotogray walking nearby, our boy decides not to involve himself with other nobles as he personally dislikes such interactions. Unexpectedly, Krild and Edorn reach out to our protagonist. They weirdly ask him to spare them some time. Surprisingly, they offer him the highest quality goods made from their territory. Plus, they also offer him a chest of coins to support him for his territory. Seeing them acting like this confuses our hero. However, his presence is actually cold, and both lords begin to shiver. They clearly regret messing with him. To understand this, we go back to the time after the battle with the goblins. Lords Krild and Edorn were trembling after seeing the magic power of Alon. Out of nowhere, they had borrowed a mage from Baron Alman. That mage was actually a third circle mage hired by Baron Alman to show off his wealth. Both lords then asked her about the magic which Alon unleashed in the battle. She straightforwardly stated that his magic actually surpassed her own. This made the lords think that our boy can actually use a third circle or even above. They concluded that he is hiding his true power and hence doesn't need any guards. Now in the present, both nobles are trying to save their lives by bribing him. Then they immediately bow down to beg for his mercy. But Alon only stands there in confusion. He doesn't even know what they have misunderstood. He is forgiving, but this time, as they have crossed the line, he decides to handle this by himself. Therefore, he turns on his cold mode. Both lords are trembling in fear, considering themselves dead. Later, Alon sends Evan to the Information Guild to get more information from the nobles. Soon, our protagonist spots 2 nobles having a secret conversation. Hence, he enhances his hearing with mana to hear their conversation. They are basically discussing the alliance of Duke Altia and Count Zenonia. Other than that, there is nothing special they are discussing. Considering Altia and Zenonia do not have a healthy relationship, our hero concludes that their alliance won't last for long. As soon as he starts enjoying the food, he hears something new from the secret conversation. They discuss that the head of this faction is none other than Palatio. Alon gets a sudden shock, as he considers this nothing but nonsense. This is because he met Duke Altia when she was young and met Kalia twice. Plus, the current Count Zenonia has never met him. Even though he's getting a headache, he decides to let them talk whatever they want. Soon the 3rd Duke of Kamalan, Carmine, greets our boy. At that moment, Alon realizes that the social gatherings are also being attended by other countries as well. With a vicious smile, Carmine comments that he has heard our hero has become a count just by luck. He is actually curious to know what the secret is. This pisses off our protagonist really badly. Just then, a nearby middle-aged noble comes forward and asks why Carmine is insulting a noble from their Asteria kingdom. Carmine is caught off guard, as he thought that oppressing Alon wouldn't be a problem. Carmine basically has come from a distant country to take Rotagri's youngest daughter as his wife. He considers himself so perfect that no woman could refuse him. Previously, in the banquet with his fiancée, the daughter of Rotagre, he made bad comments about other women besides her. This attitude made her cancel their marriage. He was so pissed off, but then he spotted our hero from a distance. Right then, he decided to use him to vent on. But everything went totally opposite to his plan, as other nobles have now cornered him. The nobles who have come in front of our protagonist are none other than Duke Rotegre from the aristocrat faction, and Marquis Mardanio from the royalist faction. Both of them ask if Carmine is looking down on the Asteria kingdom. A figure from the center of the moderate faction also comes in to handle the situation. Alon fully knows about these two figures who are the central axis of the Asteria kingdom. Carmine tries to deny it. Soon he admits his mistake, but then Marquis Mardanio whispers in his ears that he has belittled Alon. Meanwhile, our hero observes them quietly, but this scene was so familiar to him. Right then, Carmine apologizes repeatedly, but the three nobles want him to say something other than an apology. This makes our boy remember painful memories from military service. Soon, Carmine apologizes for his rudeness as he runs away. Then those three nobles turn towards our protagonist as they were worried if he's fine or not. On the other hand, he hears a secret conversation of two nobles who believe that the rumors must be true as key figures are approaching him. They think that once Altia and Zenonia enter politics, Palladio will become strong and give them power. Our hero is super tired hearing about these rumors. If it continues like this, the situation can become troublesome for him. But then he lets them talk as they are just baseless rumors. Both Duke Rotegre and Marquis Mardanio start talking with our boy. Mardanio points out that he has heard that he is researching magic. Plus, he adds that he has obtained a good artifact. He instantly decides to give that artifact to Alon. Unexpectedly, the other two had also prepared a gift for him. As Alon couldn't resist this temptation, he decides to stay quiet. In this way, he has obtained 2 magic artifacts and 5 mana potions. Early morning at Duke Rotegre's annex, Mardanio reports to someone that Alon has accepted the gift. Light gifts among nobles are just a greeting, but important items like artifacts have a bigger meaning. For those who want to join a faction, giving a gift to the faction's head means acceptance. The lady to whom Mardanio has reported mentions that Alon has accepted him. Mardanio laughs as he considers this the work of Duchess Altia. That lady in front is actually Duchess Altia, who comments that now they share the same goal. That lady asks about the others, and Mardanio reports that all of them are ready to be accepted. He, however, doesn't understand why she has personally approached those whom Alon has chosen. He believes that after selecting the necessary pawns, they will go through a transition ritual involving sincere bribes. Even as the rumors are spreading like wildfire, something like this is clearly a political current. Therefore, he decides to use this opportunity as well. On the other hand, Loria is truly satisfied by the progress as she decides to move to their next step. Fast forward to the 4th day of the banquet, and Alon keeps on receiving gifts unexpectedly. Our protagonist believes that people are reacting this way due to the false rumors suggesting he has a great relationship with Altia and Zenonia. Despite this, he can't resist the temptation to accept more and more gifts. Suddenly, Evan approaches him from behind, which scares the hell out of him. After evening, our hero gets to know that an outer god has already descended in the northern region. According to Evan, Caliban is in great shock, and they predict that Amethyst has a connection to the outer god. Plus, he has also found out about the person our hero is looking for. That person is in a village in northern Ashutalon. Right then, Alan decides to go straight to Caliban. Even when Evan asks for details, our boy doesn't give any specifics, deciding instead to explain it later on the journey. He orders Evan to start preparations. Evan leaves, but our boy is getting a headache as he hoped this would not happen. In the game, outer gods are way too dangerous. The problem is that there is no information regarding which outer god will descend or perform a divine descent. That is the reason why our protagonist was gathering information, but now everything has become useless. The thing is, he never expected this to happen quite this soon. Back when he was playing the game, Alon saw hundreds of possible outcomes. Therefore, the ending is already clear in his head. He knows that the allied kingdoms will be destroyed and fall into chaos after getting involved in useless wars on lands contaminated by power from the outer world. If that happens, our boy's life will end soon. Even though he has already planned to deal with these kinds of things, after an outer god descends, it will go through a stabilization period for a few months before it fully awakens as a living god. During the stabilization period, the outer god cannot use its full power. Therefore, our hero decides to try dealing with this problem at GEU moment. In the meantime, he writes a letter, as he is curious to know what that kid is like now. 1 week later, that letter is received by Deus. Consequently, he postpones the next schedule for 2 weeks. The scene shifts to Parkin, a village in the north of the Ashutalon kingdom. Alon is now standing in front of the kid he was looking for. That kid is actually the protagonist and playable character, Eliban, from Psychedelia. He looks exactly like he does in the illustrations. Seeing how pretty he looks, our boy starts to doubt if he really is a boy. He leans in and asks if Eliban knows who he is. Eliban chuckles and reveals he is just happy to meet someone new. From this, our protagonist concludes that a protagonist is still a protagonist, no matter how much this world differs from the game version. He knows that Eliban will become famous and strong in the future. It feels weird for our hero to meet a character he is used to playing in the game. Right then, he gives Eliban a pouch of coins. Then Evan takes out a briefcase containing a rare potion. Unexpectedly, he starts pulling out many gift boxes. In the end, Alon gives all of those gifts to Eliban, but that kid doesn't know why he is receiving this stuff. Our hero only reveals that this is an investment. Internally, he has decided to give everything good for a protagonist's early growth. He reveals to Eliban that he will become someone important in the future. He hopes for him to grow up strong so he can fight outer gods for him. As he leaves, our protagonist hopes that he has won the boy's heart. When Eliban reacts a bit, Alon introduces himself. Deep down, he wants the kid to remember his name so that when Eliban succeeds in the future, he will thank him. Eliban approaches him from behind and thanks him for his kindness with a cheerful face. Our hero didn't expect him to be this positive, as this is a dark fantasy genre. Evan then asks if it is really okay for him to leave without a proper talk. But our boy believes that he will get it, as he is a quick-witted kid. At the moment, our hero thinks that his life is at risk, and he doesn't have time to slowly build a relationship with the character. He can't tell Evan that he has set the protagonist on auto-hunt mode. Right then, Evan remarks that Eliban seems to have talent. He has observed that his mana is dense and swirling around him. It feels like he is also wearing artifacts. Alon agrees with him, but he knows that Eliban initially was just an ordinary person before going on adventures. He thinks that this could be another unexpected butterfly effect, different from the game, especially since he is the protagonist. As our boy only wants to focus on his lazy life plan, he tells Evan that Eliban is strong, and that is why he is investing in him. Furthermore, Eliban is one of the few good-hearted people in this dark fantasy world, so our protagonist doesn't need to worry about anything. Just then, Alon asks Evan if Deus would even want to meet him. He reflects that he has never even visited his own orphanage simply because he was too scared. He never thought things would turn out this way. Evan makes a comment that at least those children who were supported by him want to see him face to face. 10 days later, Alon reaches the capital of Caliban, Kurdum. Many carriages gather in front of Kurdum's north gate, waiting to enter. Inside one carriage, Evan yawns, feeling truly exhausted. Alon comments that long journeys are taxing. Holding an antique pendant, our boy reflects on how they traveled to many places to prepare themselves for the fight against the outer god. Furthermore, he has brought many gifts for Deus, wondering if the man will like them. Evan reminds him that their carriage is about to reach the checkpost, then steps out briefly to explain that an ID check is enough to pass the capital checkpoint. Inside, Alon feels grateful to find things moving quickly here. Soon Evan comes back to report a problem. Alon learns that they have been asked to step aside, even though they finished the ID check. Alon eventually comes out, supported by someone from ahead. It is a knight named Varan, a direct disciple of the Fourth Sword, Master Knight Piola. However, our boy doesn't recognize the name Piola, so he gets irritated and asks with a cold face why he has brought knights along. Varan starts coming close, explaining that his friend in the Ashudalan kingdom contacted him saying he was inconvenienced. Alon doesn't remember anything, but then suddenly recalls Carmine. Varan confidently mentions that Alon has gotten himself on his friend's bad side. In a flashback, Carmine contacted Varan through a magic orb, cursing our protagonist. He told Varan that Alon is heading to Caliban, asking him to cripple him. Back in the present, Varan mentions that he owes Carmine a big favor, therefore he wants to make a show of it. With that, Varan and his underlings surround Alon and Evan. Alon reflects that Carmine ran away after picking a fight. Meanwhile, Varan offers to let them go if they hand over all of their expensive gear. He steps forward and points his blade toward our hero, demanding compliance. Internally, Varan feels good, believing he has nothing to lose. He assumes that our protagonist is from the Asteria kingdom, which has very little voice in the alliance, and also considers him a poor noble with no connections in Caliban. Meanwhile, our boy is clearly annoyed by those two little birds working together and starts gathering energy in his hand. In the meantime, Varan is ready to launch his attack, without fear, believing that his master will take care of everything in the end. But before he can land his blow, someone comes in and grabs him by his neck, prompting him to scream loudly. He gets lifted up by his neck, struggling while wondering who that person is. Alon is also stunned to see the new arrival. It is Deus, who asks Varan coldly what he is trying to do with his benefactor. Unfortunately, Varan didn't know that Deus won the duel against Kurga of the Snowfields. Then Deus strikes his face forcefully, causing him to fall to the ground. After that, Deus grabs him by his head as he tells him to stop. Varan also didn't know that Count Palladio earned the title Swordless. Being grabbed by his head, Varan begs Deus to stop. Furthermore, he didn't know that Count Palladio is the benefactor of Master Knight Deus Macallion. Taking full control of Varan, Deus threatens the underlings that if they dare to move, it will be pretty bad for them. After that, he starts beating up Varan and slams him into a nearby tree. Nearby, our boy is stunned to see the current Deus. But Deus is furious, continuing to beat Viren, stating that he should be grateful that he is in a situation where he can't kill him. Still, he doesn't stop, landing another powerful blow. Viren's face is now fully swollen, but Deus continues beating him up. From behind, Evan remarks that he is beating Viren really badly. However, our hero is in his own thoughts as he keeps on thinking about Deus calling him his benefactor. Our boy had been expecting to be treated like a father, not a benefactor. Seeing how skillful Deus has become, Alan feels proud of him, reflecting that he has grown up to be such a fine young man. While covering his face, he says that this is how it feels like to see a son well raised, as he feels like a proud father. Meanwhile, Evan reminds him to see that his son is beating someone up. But Alan feels good thinking that his son would go that far for his father even in a foreign country, finding his son so sweet. But seeing how much he has beaten up Viren to a pulp makes him realize that this is a bit too much. He remembers that Deus was one of the 5 great sins. After that, Deus turns to approach him. Unexpectedly, he bows to Alan. With a totally different attitude, he announces that he will escort him. Somewhere in a cold climate, defeated warriors are being burned. Nearby, a knight stands holding his flag high, announcing that one of the 8 chiefs, Kulkan the Great, and his clan have been eliminated. That knight is Delman, 3rd Sword of Caliban and captain of the Crimson Flame Knight Order. He declares this a victory for the Crimson Flame Knight Order. All of his soldiers raise their weapons to celebrate. Delman orders them to return to the headquarters and regroup. On his way back, he feels annoyed, reflecting that after achieving this much, he doesn't want to lose to a person who just became a master knight. He grits his teeth in frustration, deciding to use any illegal methods unknown to others to ensure he does not lose. Caliban and the barbarians have a rich history of war involving honor. However, Delman deceived Kulkan and attacked him with his force when he found him alone, successfully eliminating the entire clan. Furthermore, Kulkan's body disappeared during the war. Delman suspects that the barbarians have hidden it. Even if he is still alive, Delman believes he will soon be dead from the poison he gave him. He shrugs everything aside, believing that everything will be over once he returns to Caliban and reports his achievement. Soon, however, he and his squad feel something unbelievable as they see the forward base. Actually, the spot Kulkan stands in the middle of the base, his eyes filled with killing intent as he calls Delman. Delman immediately activates his sword, wondering what kind of aura this is. He reminds himself that Kulkan should already be dead. But someone with a dark, sinister aura asks Delman how dare he defy the grand and secret tree full of honor, that someone gives power to the now standing Kulkan. There is a terror that even defies a superhuman who can kill hundreds with a single blow. His face starts to sweat as Delman mutters, saying he isn't Kulkan but someone else. Again, a voice asks him to answer. Delman argues that it was Kulkan's fault for believing in a duel on the battlefield. Rather than talking, he unleashes flames from his sword, which burn away a large area. However, Kulkan remains completely unharmed. He states that Delman has reached a high level for a human, giving him a last chance to duel. Then, Delman orders his squad to prepare for war. On the other hand, Kulkan prepares himself for the battle, considering Delman an honorable man. He decides not to give him an honorable death as he has shown such barbarism. On his command, Kulkan's dead army starts moving. Each one of them complains about the pain as they move. They scream, feeling unbearable pain. It hurts them so much that they wish for someone to kill them, begging repeatedly for someone to just kill them. Within an instant, Kulkan succeeds in wounding Delman with just a bare hand. Delman screams in pain. On the other hand, Kulkan destroys the ground beneath them, which makes Delman's knights fly into the sky. With just one powerful kick, Kulkan eliminates all the flying knights, and the blood starts pouring like rain. After that, Kulkan faces Delman. He instantly pierces his hand right through Delman's body. Delman doesn't understand what he is trying to do. Soon he collapses on the ground as he feels an unbearable amount of pain. Kulkan reflects that everyone in this place is barbaric, which is created from the dead whose deaths weren't acknowledged. As the undead soldiers face the soldiers of Delman, Kulkan announces that this is the bloody Colosseum. Then, the god of barbarians, Ulutus, father of duels, personally grants them an honorable death. Then need to prove that he is not barbaric through a duel. The scene shifts back to the entrance of Caliban, where Deus requests Alon to let him escort him. Seeing him bow, every knight gets stunned. The thing is, Deus the Swordless's pride has reached the sky. He even beat the hell out of the second prince who insulted his sister, and yet, no one said anything to Deus. Furthermore, he won't be courteous to anyone except the king. That is the reason why the public is shocked to see him bow to a count from a different country. Seeing him bow in front of our boy, people start to think who exactly this Count Palladio is. Deus tells Alon and Evan to step inside his luxurious carriage. Seeing it, Aelin reflects internally that it will attract a lot of attention. Meanwhile, Evan decides to follow them with the transport carriage. Later, Alon finally arrives at Deus's mansion. Alon is stunned to learn that he lives in such a big mansion. Stepping inside and then following Deus, our hero feels suffocation in silence, which makes him wonder if Deus is feeling uncomfortable with him. Letting out a sigh, Alon decides to get straight to the point because he believes that is the best way to show his respect and consideration. Eventually, they enter a room. At the entrance, our boy straightforwardly describes that he is here because he has a request for him. The word request makes Deus stunned. As Alon confirms, Deus feels warm as this is a request, not an order. Seeing him acting a bit different, Alon asks if there is something wrong about that, internally stressing out, wondering if Deus is thinking he is shameless. But Deus tells him to wait, as he wants them to continue their discussion after sitting down. Deus makes him sit on a separate chair, which makes our protagonist wonder if the host shouldn't sit in the highest chair. Internally, he likes it because it feels like he is treating him like a father. Clearing his throat, Alon reveals he actually has a request for him, and he knows that it might trouble him. The thing is, he's heading to the north, so he asks if he will accompany him. Without listening to his full request, Deus agrees without complaint. Alon stares at him unbelievably, as he didn't expect him to agree that fast. Deus calmly says that he was about to prepare for an expedition to the north as well. Learning this, Alon feels lucky. Then he reveals his second request, the most difficult one. He wants Deus to let him borrow the ring of the Mad One from Caliban's treasure vault. A soldier informs the vice captain that he has just returned from the escort mission. The vice captain praises him for his work, though internally, he knows the soldier did very little since the captain went on this mission himself. Deus's sister, Siley, beams as she hears about the escort mission, thinking her brother must have a very important guest. In a flashback, Deus ordered the vice captain to delay the northern schedule by 2 weeks. When the officer asked for a reason, Deus happily mentioned that his benefactor would be here soon. Back in the present, the vice captain reflects that he has never seen his captain make such an expression before. While thinking, he mentions that Count Palatio from the Asteria kingdom has just arrived, causing Siley to react in amazement. Back in the meeting room, Alon asks if it is possible for him to borrow the ring of the Mad One from Caliban's treasury. Internally, he believes this is an unreasonable request that will put him in debt to the royal family, but he knows the ring is vital for his plan. When Deus is about to say yes, Evan enters the room and apologizes for being late. Deus's speech is cut off, and Alon thinks that Evan entered just in time. He then plans to improve the atmosphere by giving gifts to Deus. Alon comments that Evan has come at the right time, but beneath those words, he is actually asking if the items were brought as requested. Evan gives a thumbs up, saying he's going to bring them in. Soon the room fills with gifts meant for Deus. The captain is confused, so Alon states these are items he prepared for him, specifically recommending a shoestring tie. Internally, Alon is satisfied to have improved the atmosphere. He feels proud, reflecting on how he chose the shoestring with a lot of consideration, and he hopes the captain likes it. To his surprise, Deus only says thanks. Our hero pauses right there, and after a brief silence, he asks if Deus is going to open them. However, the captain turns his head, remarking that it would be discourteous, and that he will open the gifts when he is alone. Alon's excitement fades as he thinks there is no need for such formality, wondering if Deus disliked the gifts or is simply trying to be respectful. After clearing his throat, Alon says that if he is disadvantaged by the request for the ring, he can offer compensation. Deus cuts his speech short, stating he will bring the ring of the Mad One instantly. Alon startles and asks if the captain heard what he just said about its current location. Deus nods, mentioning the location is the royal treasury of Caliban. Our hero asks if that wouldn't be difficult, but with a plain face, Deus mentions it would usually take a week. After thinking for a bit, he says that dealing with the king is the most bothersome part, and suggests he will just take 50 people to get it. Alon does not believe him and takes it as a joke. With a very serious face, Deus asks if he should start right now, which makes Alon doubt if it was a joke at all. He tells the captain he doesn't need to dive that deep. Understanding something, Deus decides to retrieve it as soon as possible. Alon is stunned, as he did not expect him to try so hard to provide the ring. He feels grateful to see Deus care about him, though he thinks this effort is a bit much. Soon they step out of the meeting room. In the hallway, Siley comes to meet her brother. Evan steps forward and casually meets her. She instantly recognizes him and calls him Brother Evan. Both seem happy to finally meet once again. Alon then realizes she is the younger sister he ordered Evan to save. From the game, he learned how she died, but seeing her in person now, he thinks she looks a lot like Deus. Meanwhile, Deus stands displeased. He calls his sister over and tells her not to address Evan as brother, but as Mr. Alon never expected him to act like that, even though the captain has a sense of loss regarding his family. On the other hand, Evan is in great shock at being called Mr. He thinks Deus cherishes her more than he thought, picturing the captain as being super protective of his sister. In the middle of this, Alon comes to understand why Deus is so nice to him. It is because he saved Siley. He never thought of it this way, as he was always focused on the fact that he had prevented Deus from becoming the sin. He feels touched, wondering if Deus is going to help him with anything at this point, but he immediately rejects that idea. Then Siley turns to our hero and recognizes him as Count Palladio. Alon confirms his identity. She mentions she heard he ordered Evan to save her, but Alon casually says he only did what he needed to do. Internally, he reflects that if she had died, her brother would have become a proper villain. He even made sure the two of them met at the right time so things would go smoothly. Holding her brother's hand, Siley sincerely thanks Alon for saving her life. Our hero is stunned, thinking that even if his intentions were different, receiving gratitude feels great. Eventually, the protagonist stays at the mansion for a few days. A day later, Deus comes into Alon's room and presents him with the ring. While taking his tea, Alon is stunned that it has been only one day. He wonders how the captain brought it back so quickly. Right then, Evan steps in and desperately calls for our hero. He informs Alon that he has just heard something very odd. When Alon asks about it, Evan mentions that Deus made a ruckus at the palace demanding the ring. The second prince was nitpicking him and received a couple of slaps from Deus in return. The scene shifts, and after 3 days of preparation, Aelin goes on the northern expedition with the Solar Eclipse Knights. 2 weeks later, from the forward outpost on Caliban's northern border, he hears terrible news of a night squad being eliminated in the northern battlefield by Kolkun. In an army camp on the northern side, someone yells at the thought of retreating. He asks if the messenger is in his right mind to suggest they show their backs to the barbarians. The informer argues back, saying the Count has already seen for himself that the soldiers are severely wounded. Since the first sword has gone into seclusion, the informer thinks they have no chance of winning. In that meeting, Deus claps his hands to silence everyone. Then the fourth sword, Fiola, admits everyone's opinions are valid and suggests they should decide after calming down. Outside the meeting room, Fiola sighs, remarking that the outer god is destroying their bases with his undead. The third sword, Delman, died at the eastern base, while the second sword, Kiriana, has been severely wounded at the western base. Deus comments that he can already see the destruction from there. Fiola agrees, saying the sky is being devoured by ominous mana and has turned red. This is visible only to those who have reached a high realm and opened their eyes to it. It is a chilling landscape of mana. Fiola remarks that this aura keeps catching his gaze and thinks retreating is the best option for now. Soon Deus spots smoke coming from somewhere. As he follows it, he sees Alon grilling sweet potatoes on hot coals. Meanwhile, Alon keeps repeating words like diffraction, condense, and focus. Deus wonders where he got those terms from. Then he hears someone yelling. It is a lady with blue hair who complains that she cannot focus, telling the soldiers their treatment is done and she can do nothing more. She knows she is there to investigate the ritual of the barbarians, but one of the injured soldiers tells her that people come before the investigation, asking her to help just one more time. Deus recognizes those soldiers as the King's Grace Knight Order of the Second Sword, and the girl as the Vice Master of the Blue Magic Tower. The lady turns away, telling them they can only watch over the wounded. Seeing Deus in her way, she gets irritated and wants him to move, but she gets chills when she spots Alon in the distance, staring at her coldly. Pedia goes pale as soon as she sees the cold, terrifying face of Alon. She doesn't understand how in the world he happened to be here. Spotting the Vice Master, our hero realizes that the rumors of her being here were true. Later, Pedia shivers as she scaredly murmurs that the medicine Alon mentioned is out of stock. Preparing it will take a bit more time, and she also mentions that she is tired. After sighing, our protagonist tells her that he was hoping she would help him, but he can understand her reason. Internally, Alon thinks that maybe he was asking for too much. Pedia flinches and, while being scared, tries to calm him down by saying that she can absolutely do it. But then our boy mentions that his finances are a bit tight right now, so he can't pay right in front. Sweating, Pedia says that there is no problem with that, as she can accept a single gold coin for this job. Thinking a bit, Alon decides not to turn down such a good offer. On the other hand, Pedia's subordinates react in shock as they never expected her to smile like that. They internally reflect that she even let herself be scammed and wonder if she has completely lost her mind. Pedia immediately runs off as she tells our hero that she is going to make the medicine immediately and serve it freshly. Soon, her subordinates' jaws drop as they see how impressively our protagonist is eating his grilled sweet potato. The scene shifts, and inside the meeting room, a very evil aura makes its entrance. Fiola gets up as he asks Deus if he has that energy. Deus simply remarks that they are under attack. Outside their camp, a whole army of undead has appeared. Therefore everyone charges and soon the war starts between soldiers and the undead army. Those undead make painful voices. Soon, Pedia unleashes her ice shard, which makes a lot of undead immobilize, and then the shards explode along with them. On the other hand, Deus is gracefully using his swordsmanship to eliminate the undead. The whole sky turns red as wild thunder lightning appears. This is an overwhelming force which can spread destruction. As a heavy thunder strikes on the ground, an evil being comes out of it which calls the humans savages. This being is the destructive god of barbarians, Ulutus. However soon, Fiola dashes toward Ulutus and lands a strike on him. But unfortunately, it doesn't even leave a small scratch. Fiola gets a shock that even the quick sword didn't work on him. Ulutus then in return lands a powerful blow on Fiola, as he states that those who have pronounced the nobility of their souls will not be granted an honorable death. Sadly, Fiola has lost his life as his head gets separated. Unexpectedly, Elon steps up as he turns to Uludus. He says that in accordance with the Oath of Calgunia, he, Alan Paltio, presents himself to honor this holy promise. Our hero requests a duel of barbarian. Listening to him, Uludus starts to laugh loudly. It amuses him that someone knows the oath of their era, which is quite unexpected. Then with a snap of his finger, he again transforms his undead army as some kind of evil aura surrounds them. Uludus addresses our protagonist as his noble opponent and welcomes him to his bloody Colosseum, which can be interfered with by no one. Soon a huge battleground is formed by the help of the blood of the undead. He declares that in accordance with the Grand Pact, he, Uludus, accepts this sacred duel of barbarian. Meanwhile, our boy trembles in front of his terrifying presence. Alan admits he was wrong that he didn't think the disabled entity was already this close to manifesting. The thing is, the closer an outer god gets to incarnating, the more power they gain, which is kind of equal to 5 mortal sins. While trembling, our hero reflects that if he hadn't drunk the potion of excellence just now, he would have passed out already. He admits that this is his last chance before his manifestation completes. With that, Alan announces to begin their duel. The duel of barbarian is played turn by turn. As Uludus and Elon start their duel, our protagonist recalls that the rule number 1 is that the person challenged has the initiative. As Uludus is going for the attack, he amusingly decides to play the Song of Ruin. All the other human soldiers tell each other to take cover. However, Elon doesn't move at all. He calls the rule number 2 is that the defender cannot move outside of their turn. If struck by an indirect force, they cannot move at all. Uludus calls this magnificent, as he thinks our boy is honorable. Rule number 3 is that the opponents swap positions at the end of each turn, as a turn consists of 1 attack and 1 defense. Thinking that it is the defender's turn, Elon reflects that a basic defense would be useless against an entity like Uludus. With great precision, our hero uses his ability: immobilization, condensation, reinforcement, deepening. A kind of black smoke comes out of a bottle full of fluid, which is being held by Elon. He thinks that even if he has to use all of his magic today just to block a single attack, he will do it. Right then, Uludus unleashes his powerful attack towards our protagonist, but Elon doesn't flinch at all, nor does he lose his stance. Uludus's attack ends up in a huge blast, which even destroys the ground beneath. Soon after, when the dust and smoke settles down, all of the human soldiers, including Pedia and Deus, wonder if our boy has survived or not. Fortunately, a huge magic circle forms just behind Elon. Even though he is in a poor state, he is still standing somehow. Just then, the pendant he is wearing starts to disperse in the air. He recalls a past moment in which Pedia gave him the Potion of Excellence and the Remithion Potion. The second potion allows him to soothe even the most intense pain, but she wondered when he had planned to use it. Now in the present, holding the potion bottle, our hero reflects that it works so well, and without it, he wouldn't have been able to stand like this. Alon feels that everything has happened according to his plan. Then he pours the potion right onto him directly. Even though he knows that he won't be able to recover all at once, through this potion, he believes he should be able to move right now. The duel with Uludus is based on turns, with separate rules, and it is suggested to know the rules before stepping into the fight. In order to minimize the actions of the outer god through the rules, the hero dragged him into the duel. Our boy almost saw Jesus Christ, but thanks to the pendant of reincarnation and a healing potion, he made it out alive. The activation of the Ring of the Mad One requires being almost dead and alive at the same time. After the ring's restriction completes, a shimmering aura surrounds him. Alan knows that Utulus considers duels sacred, so he won't defend himself or interrupt. Our guy remembers that Utulus would take the first hit in the game, and enhancement removed the time limit instead of spending a turn. But this is reality, not a game. There is no time limit. The first restriction is that the laws of the world are twisted when magic is used in a land of extreme cold. The second restriction is that the laws are twisted when magic is used in an almost dead state. The third restriction is that when magic is used against a god, it twists the laws. And the fourth restriction is that when magic is used against Utulus, known as the god of duels, it twists the laws of the world. Meanwhile, our boy gathers all his mana to attack and take down Utulus. The attack hits him, making a wide hole in Utulus, but he stands unbothered, affirming that the hero is indeed powerful. Alan is shaken, thinking he has failed, as his strike has drained all his mana. Utulus notices that our boy is carrying on the will and can't believe that Alan already carries the class. Then something strange happens. Utulus begins to evaporate and disappear while affirming that the duel was incredible. As our hero is shocked, Utulus begins to quote that he should keep an eye on the black and blue ones. Since he has lost the duel, Utulus gives our boy his belt along with the authority. As he parts ways, he tells our boy that Alan will be the one carrying their will by remembering them. He further guides him to call out his name when the Uruspers break free. He reveals his real name, the Wicked One, and vanishes. Later, the expedition gets busy carrying out the dead and preparing to return to Caliburn. Meanwhile, in the carriage, little Miss Yapper can't stop asking our boy questions. So Alan wonders if she even knows anything about the black and blue ones. She gets nervous and then runs out of the carriage. Alan thinks to himself that getting appreciation for the bare minimum makes him feel like a cruel villain. The thing he can't get out of his mind is why the god disappeared after a mere failed attack. The belt handed over to him is the Belt of the Forgotten One. On the inside of the belt, it says to make the way to Kahara, the city of the ancient god, making him wonder if something special is there. Then Deus enters the carriage, wondering if he should kill the mage who left the carriage without bidding Alan a proper goodbye. Nervously, our boy calms him down and denies it. 2 weeks later, in Kurtham, the expedition ends as Deus reports the subjugation result to the king, and the ring is safely returned too. As he leaves, a bunch of carriages filled with gifts are sent with him. He is happy about it since he invested everything into saving his life. Then Deus wonders if he could become as strong as our hero, making our boy puzzled. Alan knows well that it is just a matter of time until Deus realizes how powerful he can be. So he assures Deus that with optimum effort and work, he can reach the point where he wants to be. As he sits in the carriage, Deus wonders why Alan asks him for favors, instead of just telling him what to do. Our boy turns and genuinely wonders who would order their family around, making Deus rethink everything. The carriage leaves, and inside it, Alan sobs as he thinks about Deus. He sponsored Deus only out of goodwill, with no ulterior motive. Later at night, Deus sits in his room, thinking that he only followed the hero to repay his kindness, but instead ended up receiving even more from him. He lifts his hand, aiming to do some magic. All he wishes for is to have talent for magic just like Alan, while he ponders over the thought of family. The carriage reaches home, and Alan is overjoyed since it has been 3 months. He accidentally opens the workroom door and immediately runs away, since all he needs right now is his bedroom and some rest. However, he returns to the room before properly resting. He begins working once again while waiting for the day he can laze around like a real noble and not have to act like a salaryman. After that, he takes an entire week off, finally rewarding himself with the bare minimum. But after a week, he starts to feel uncomfortable, so he decides to search up the terms that Utilus gave him. Utilus's words roam around in Alan's mind, and his name sounds weirdly familiar to the Eastern god. Still, the most baffling thing is his disappearance. He wonders why they appear, and whether there is a chance that the other outer gods might start appearing as well. Unlike the 5 deadly sins, they do warn about their arrival. He gets up, aiming to go to Kahara, but he can't reach it despite even knowing the location. The reason is that it has not yet been discovered by explorers, so going there would be full of hassle. Suddenly, Evan enters the room, complaining that the room is cold. It is one of Alan's spells that is paying off. Bro has a magical air conditioner. Then Evan reports that a hidden city has been located, surprising our boy. On the other hand, the 5 deadly sins are having a meeting through a crystal orb. Usually the meeting lasts 10 minutes, but not today. Deus, who usually stays quiet, decides to tell a story today, making the rest of them excited. But the excitement quickly fades into annoyance since he keeps blabbering for another 50 minutes. When he is asked to stop, he shushes them and continues for another 3 hours, setting the record for the longest call. Back to our boy. When he enters the room, it is completely filled with presents. The presents are from nobles, and all of them are of high value, so he simply keeps them without saying a word. But the arrival of gifts doesn't stop even after a whole week, showing the significance of having a connection with a knight. Even a month later, the presents keep coming, making him want to return the excessive gifts. In the capital of the Asteria Kingdom, a grand council meeting is being held, and our boy is late for his very first meeting. His nervousness is evident in the huge steps he is taking. But what Evan notices is that the nobles are sort of walking behind him in a line. When Alan reaches the council hall, it is empty, so he takes a seat at the back. The line of nobles glare at him, so he gets up and sits in the middle. Still, they stare at him, so he has to sit at the front among the heads of each faction. Discomfort is pretty apparent on his face, but he still sits there. The meeting finally commences, and our boy already wants to leave. It is announced that the Cal faction has been granted voting rights, and its representative is Count Palatio. Our boy finally begins to pay attention, as he is unaware of the Cal faction. He looks behind him and sees 2 women smiling and sitting together. Naturally, our boy assumes that the Cal faction might belong to them, merging their alliances together to form a faction. Just as he is trying to process all this new information, he is called as the representative of the Cal faction. The dots immediately connect, and he realizes that he is the representative of the newly formed Shadow faction, which almost drives him crazy. In an extremely icy land, a cloaked man stands at the edge of a cliff, eager to see someone's progress. Back to the horrors of the council, our boy is unable to believe that he has been chosen as the representative of the faction. He could never have imagined becoming a villainous mastermind overnight, which sounds straight out of a movie to him. After his silence, the meeting continues. As the meeting ends, Alan looks like a zombie being congratulated. He is the main character for the day. His thoughts are interrupted when Countess Zenonia and Duchess Altia approach him. All he remembers are a few light conversations with them a while back. He is so paranoid that he becomes convinced he probably has a split personality that handled everything behind his back. After talking with the 2 women for a while, he realizes that Alon had ordered an alliance between them, and the Cal faction was formed through the instructions sent to Zenonia. Sending him presents was their way of being accepted. He swears that he never told them to do any of it because, as far as he remembers, he only sent an apology letter. But now that he thinks about it, some of the letters didn't make sense to him. There is no way he can cover himself up, because people from the shadows are known to have peculiar sensibilities, and the ones from the game aren't to be messed with. So the only thing he can do is take on the position for now and retire later. The two of them wonder what his plans are from here, to which he tries to act cool and suggests sweeping up the underworld. Then he bluntly turns his back and bids farewell before more questions are asked, questions he doesn't have answers to. Later, he arrives home, and Evan is surprised to see him arrive so early. Alon gives no explanation and decides to head back to the colony. Meanwhile, the two ladies have heard what they needed to hear. Clinking their glasses, they look forward to seeing the underworld unite. On the other hand, an agent floats in the sky locating Alon in order to kill him. But he is a little annoyed by Alon's connection with the night and wants no unnecessary enemies, something even his master advises. Still, he is convinced because the mission is quite significant. A while back, in Duke Kamalan's mansion, the agent steps in. Lord Carmine greets him. Suddenly, the agent is attacked by multiple men, but with one hit he takes them all down. Carmine is impressed by his strength and proposes that he kill Alon. He is sure that his offer won't be denied, since he is also known as the Tyrant of Ashutalan. The agent assures him that there won't be any issue as long as the payment is right. Then the agent doubts whether Carmine would be able to afford the cost. Carmine instantly takes out 4 abyss entities. Seeing them in his hands, the agent is shaken because those items are distributed in the black market only in minute quantities. The entities can provide special powers, which makes them extremely expensive. The greed for power makes the agent wonder how strong he would become if he used them, since he has experienced a small quantity of them before. Then the agent leaves, assuring that he will be back soon. Meanwhile, Carmine is left alone with an evil grin, knowing that Alan will soon be done for. A while later, we see the agent meeting Seeker, known as Duke Kamalan, the head of the nobles of the Ashutalan Kingdom and the power behind the underworld of the Federation Kingdom. This man is the father of that same scumbag who ordered the agent for our boy's assassination. And the father is disappointed that his son stole the abyss entities for this job. But the man decides not to interfere, and lets the ball roll. Well, this is just good for the agent, as he will be getting the abyss entities as a reward for the mission. Right then, a guy named Shutro, the underworld power of the Ashutalan Kingdom, arrives, and this guy seems to be the reason Seeker didn't interfere with his son's plans. According to Shutro, the Cal faction is getting massive with Palladio acting as head, so the elimination of our boy is necessary. Back with the agent, he is hovering in the air, feeling exhilarated that the abyss entities will be his soon enough. Just as he is about to make his move, the assassin gets assassinated by some unknown force. This blue-haired boy seems to be on our side, and that's precisely why he felt it necessary to eliminate the threat this man posed to our boy.